1916 U.S. Navy Diving Manual, Chapter 1. General Description of Navy Standard Diving Apparatus. The principal parts of the apparatus are as follows: dress, breastplate, helmet, air hose, air control valve, weights, telephone equipment, gloves, overalls, air pump. The dress. The dress is a flexible diving dress material made of rubber between layers of cotton twill and reinforced at the points of wear. It is so constructed that it encloses the entire body with the exception of the head and hands. The sleeves of the dress terminate in elastic rubber cuffs which form flexible watertight joints at the wrists. The neck of the dress is fitted with a rubber gasket, or collar, and an inside portion of cloth called a bib. The purpose of the collar is to attach the breastplate to the dress, the breastplate fitting between the rubber collar and the bib. The bib fits loosely and comes well up inside of the neck piece of the breastplate. The object of the bib is to collect any water that may enter the helmet through the valves and prevent this water from coming in contact with the diver's body. Breastplate. The breastplate is that portion of the diving apparatus which connects on the lower end with the dress and on its upper end with the helmet. It is of tinned copper and so made that the lower portion fits comfortably over the shoulders, a pad usually being interposed between the shoulders and the breastplate. Its upper end is circular and comes about on a level with the larynx. The breastplate is attached to the dress by means of screw studs which pass through holes in the rubber collar. 4 sectional metal clamps conforming with the curvature of the breastplate are placed over the studs and held in place by wing nuts. When these nuts are screwed down, the collar of the dress is compressed between the clamps and the edge of the breastplate, thus forming a watertight joint. Helmet. The helmet, which encloses the diver's head, is attached to the circular ring at the neck of the breastplate by an interrupted screw joint. A small stop pin is provided at the back of the helmet, which is turned down into a recess on the breastplate as a precaution against the helmet becoming accidentally detached. A gasket is interposed between the helmet and breastplate, thus forming a watertight joint. The helmet is constructed with 4 windows. One is directly in front of the diver's face and is called the faceplate. 2 side windows are placed on a level with the faceplate to permit lateral vision, and a 4th window is located in the midline above the faceplate to permit upward vision. An air inlet connection, called the gooseneck, is placed at the back of the helmet and curved downward to give a proper lead to the diver's air hose. A safety valve, or non-return valve, is screwed onto the end of the gooseneck, and the air hose is coupled to the male threaded portion of this valve. The proper functioning of the safety valve is of the utmost importance. Its purpose is to prevent injury to the diver in the event of a rupture of the air hose above him or a serious failure of the air pump. Without this valve, a sudden loss of pressure would allow compressed air in the helmet and dress to escape up the hose, resulting in a dangerous pressure imbalance that could force the diver's body into the helmet. Even a slight pressure difference of this kind is known to be instantly fatal. A regulating escape valve is fitted into the right side of the helmet between the faceplate and the right side window. The valve seats with the water pressure and against the air pressure within the suit. Excess air pressure causes air to escape into the surrounding water. A spring and regulating screw allow the diver to control the inflation of the dress and thus regulate buoyancy. Improper adjustment of this valve can be extremely dangerous. If too freely open and air supply is inadequate, the dress may collapse and interfere with breathing. If too tightly closed, overinflation may occur, producing excessive positive buoyancy and possibly causing the diver to be carried rapidly to the surface. This condition is known as blowing up. A supplementary relief valve, or spitcock, is placed on the front of the helmet to the left of the faceplate. This valve permits fine adjustment of buoyancy and the expulsion of water that may collect inside the helmet. Air hose. The diving hose is 1 1/2 inches in external diameter and 1/2 inch internal diameter. It is made up in 3-foot and 50-foot lengths, coupled together with gunmetal couplings of alternating male and female type. When new, the hose is capable of withstanding an internal test pressure of 500 pounds per square inch for 10 minutes. Air control valve. The air control valve is a needle valve interposed in the air hose 3 feet from the helmet connection and attached to the breastplate by a flexible link. It is operated by the diver and permits control of the flow of high-pressure air into the helmet. WEIGHTS. The weights consist of a weighted belt and leaded shoes. Their purpose is to produce negative buoyancy when the diving suit is moderately distended with air. Telephone equipment. The telephone equipment is of special construction and provides communication between the diver and attendants at the surface. The telephone cable and lifeline are combined in one line, which also serves to support the diver when off the bottom. If the telephone fails, a reserve code of signals may be transmitted through the lifeline. Pressure affects the diver's voice, reducing timbre, but speech remains intelligible at depths up to approximately 306 feet when spoken at a moderate volume. Gloves. The gloves are attached to the sleeves of an underjacket and extend beneath the cuffs of the diving dress. They are made of waterproof material and protect the hands from cold. In temperate waters, they are not worn. Overalls. Overalls are provided to protect the diving dress from chafing and wear. Adjustable straps regulate the distance between the helmet and the crotch of the dress, preventing the helmet from rising over the diver's head when the dress is inflated. Diving air pumps. Manually operated air pumps are provided when other air supply methods are unavailable. Except in special emergencies, diving with air supplied by a single hand-driven pump shall be limited to depths not exceeding 72 feet. Greater depths require additional pumps or alternative air supply methods. When hand-driven pumps are used, the air control valve is not required. Chapter 2. The Physics of Diving. In the study of the art of diving and its effect upon the human body, it is necessary to consider a few of the physical properties of air and water. Fluids. A fluid is a substance the particles of which are easily separable. Fluids are either gaseous or liquid. The ones with which we are chiefly concerned in diving are air, water, and the fluids of the body. Air. Air is the fluid we breathe and which surrounds the earth, the atmosphere. It is invisible, inodorous, insipid, transparent, compressible, elastic, and ponderable. Dry air, when pure, consists of approximately 79% nitrogen, including argon, about 21% oxygen, and a small percentage of carbon dioxide. Air follows the general laws governing gases. Boyle's law. Boyle's law states that the volume of a gas varies inversely as the absolute pressure, while its density varies directly as the pressure. An increase of pressure decreases the volume of a gas and increases its density in proportion to the pressure applied. If the pressure is doubled, the volume is reduced by 1/2. If trebled, by 2/3. Charles's law. Charles's law states that the volume of a gas varies directly with temperature. An increase in temperature increases volume, while a decrease reduces volume. Water. Water is the fluid forming rivers, lakes, and seas. Pure water consists of hydrogen and oxygen and is colorless, tasteless, and nearly incompressible. At its maximum density, it serves as the standard for specific gravity. It freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit and boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. The human body contains approximately 2/3 of its weight in water. Oxygen. Oxygen is a colorless, tasteless, odorless gas forming about 1/5 of the atmosphere by volume. It is indispensable to respiration but cannot be breathed in its pure state indefinitely. Under high pressure, oxygen becomes toxic and may be fatal. Hydrogen. Hydrogen is a colorless, tasteless, odorless gas and the lightest known substance. It is highly inflammable and forms part of water and illuminating gases. Nitrogen. Nitrogen is a colorless, tasteless, odorless gas forming roughly 4/5 of the atmosphere by volume. It is chemically inert in the free state and incapable of supporting life, but is an essential constituent of all living tissues. Carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a colorless, heavy, irrespirable gas. It extinguishes flame and destroys life when inhaled in sufficient quantity. Plants absorb it for nutrition, retaining carbon and releasing oxygen. Atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure at average sea level is approximately 14.7 pounds per square inch. A column of sea water 33 feet high exerts the same pressure. Atmospheric pressure is expressed in atmospheres. 1 atmosphere equaling 14.7 pounds per square inch. Absolute pressure. Absolute pressure is pressure measured above a perfect vacuum. It equals gauge pressure plus atmospheric pressure. A diver at 33 feet underwater is subjected to 2 atmospheres of absolute pressure. Gauge pressure. Pressure gauges used in diving indicate pressure above atmospheric pressure. They are also calibrated to show corresponding depth of water. By lowering an open air hose underwater and pumping air into it, depth and pressure can be accurately measured. Water pressure. Water pressure increases with depth. Every foot of seawater adds approximately 0.445 pounds per square inch. Pressure is transmitted equally in all directions and acts as a compressive force on immersed bodies. A diver standing upright experiences less pressure at the helmet than at the feet. Buoyancy. A body submerged in a liquid is buoyed upward by a force equal to the weight of the displaced liquid. With the diving suit distended by air, the diver becomes positively buoyant. To counteract this, weights are added to produce negative buoyancy. Excessive air inflation increases buoyancy and may cause uncontrolled ascent, known as blowing up. Helmet valves. The diving apparatus consists of a compressible dress and a rigid helmet. As pressure increases during descent, air is forced from the dress into the helmet. Air must be supplied to maintain internal pressure slightly greater than the surrounding water pressure. Excess air must be allowed to escape to prevent excessive buoyancy. This function is controlled by the escape valve and its regulating spring. Pressure effects. The lungs function best when internal and external pressures are nearly equal. If the dress collapses against the chest, breathing becomes difficult or impossible. Provided sufficient air is supplied, the body adjusts internally to pressure changes. If water pressure exceeds internal air pressure excessively, a dangerous squeeze may occur. Falls underwater. A sudden fall to a greater depth causes a rapid increase in water pressure. If air pressure does not rise correspondingly, air is forced from the dress into the helmet, and the diver's body may be driven upward into the helmet. This effect, known as a squeeze, is often fatal. Falls from shallow depths are particularly dangerous because the relative pressure increase is greatest. Temperature effects. Although changes in gas volume due to temperature are usually disregarded in diving, other temperature effects are important. Air becomes heated when compressed, and excessive heat may endanger the diver unless cooling is provided. Work on pumps. As depth increases, air pumps must deliver both greater volumes of air and air at higher pressure. The labor required increases rapidly and limits practical depths when using hand-driven pumps. For deep diving operations, power-driven air compressors are essential. Chapter 3. The diver's air supply. An average adult man at rest breathes approximately 1/4 cubic foot of air per minute. The volume of air respired is regulated by the amount of carbon dioxide in the alveolar air. Under normal atmospheric pressure, breathing is automatically adjusted so that alveolar air contains about 6% carbon dioxide. If this percentage falls, breathing diminishes or ceases until normal conditions are restored. Moderate work increases carbon dioxide production 3 to 4 times, and hard work increases it 6 to 8 times. Consequently, the volume of air breathed must increase. Inspired air containing 3% carbon dioxide causes breathing to nearly double. 6% causes great distress, and 10% may lead to unconsciousness. When pressure is increased, this relationship changes. What remains constant is not the percentage of carbon dioxide, but its absolute pressure. For example, at great depth, a much smaller percentage of carbon dioxide produces the same physiological effect as a larger percentage at the surface. At rest, the average adult produces about 0.014 cubic feet of carbon dioxide per minute at atmospheric pressure. A diver at rest produces about 0.019 cubic feet per minute, and with moderate work this increases to about 0.045 cubic feet per minute. Because carbon dioxide is continually excreted into the helmet, adequate ventilation with fresh air is essential. Insufficient air supply leads to carbon dioxide accumulation, which is the primary cause of difficult breathing experienced in diving. Provided the carbon dioxide content of the helmet does not exceed the equivalent of 3% of an atmosphere, moderate work can be performed without respiratory distress. To maintain this limit, a minimum air supply equivalent to 1.5 cubic feet per minute at the absolute pressure of the dive is required. Because surface measured air supply must increase in proportion to absolute pressure, the amount of air delivered at the surface must rise with depth. Better ventilation is required for hard work, and when practicable, arrangements should be made to supply approximately 3 times the minimum amount of air. Methods of supplying air to the diver. Excluding self-contained diving apparatus, there are 3 methods of ventilating the diver's helmet. Supplying air from high-pressure accumulators charged by power-driven compressors. Supplying air from low-pressure accumulators charged by power-driven compressors. Supplying air from hand-driven air pumps. Air supply from high-pressure accumulators. High-pressure accumulators include the air storage systems used in torpedo installations aboard naval vessels. Diving from such accumulators should be conducted directly from the diving vessel to avoid the hazards of long air hoses. When accumulator capacity permits, diving should be undertaken using air stored at full pressure. If accumulator capacity is insufficient, compressors must be operated during the dive, and cooling systems must be maintained to ensure a safe air temperature. The capacity of compressors and accumulators must always be known and accounted for. Divers must never be allowed to work at the limit of their air supply, regardless of the method used. A sufficient reserve must always be maintained to permit the dispatch of a relief diver. Torpedo air flasks may be connected to increase available air storage when necessary. Air supply from torpedo air flasks. Torpedo air flasks may be used when deep diving operations must be conducted away from the diving vessel. In such cases, at least 3 flasks must be connected, with 1 held in reserve. For depths exceeding 120 feet, a fully equipped relief boat with charged air flasks must be kept nearby. No more than 2 divers are permitted to dive from the same boat when using this method. The working flasks must maintain a pressure margin above the diver's working pressure while the diver is on the bottom. The reserve flask must not be used except in emergencies, and if it is used, additional air supply must be immediately provided. Calculations are provided in the manual to determine the duration of air supply from a single flask, based on flask capacity, pressure, number of divers, and depth of the dive. Air supply from low-pressure accumulators. Low-pressure accumulators are used on vessels equipped with gas ejector systems or at shore installations. Air pressure is maintained by large-capacity compressors, ensuring a continuous supply. In this method, there is no precise way to measure the amount of air passing through the helmet. Adequate ventilation must therefore be judged by the diver's physical condition and the absence of symptoms related to carbon dioxide accumulation. When using accumulators, the air must be of suitable temperature and purity. It must be free of noxious fumes and contain minimal carbon dioxide. Oil used in compressors must have a high flash point to prevent contamination of the air supply. Sufficient pressure above water pressure must be maintained to ensure proper ventilation, and a reserve air supply must always be available to permit safe decompression. Air supply from manually operated diving air pumps. When using hand-operated pumps, the amount of air delivered depends on pump capacity, number of pumps, and pumping speed. Because pump capacity and sustainable pumping speed are limited, the depth at which a diver can work effectively using a single pump is restricted. If one pump cannot provide the required air volume for the intended depth, additional pumps must be connected and operated simultaneously. The rate of pumping required depends on pump design, efficiency, and depth. The manual provides procedures for calculating the number of pump revolutions required to deliver the minimum allowable air supply at various depths and efficiencies. If the required pumping rate exceeds what can be maintained by the crew, the work must be divided among multiple pumps. Conditions governing the use of hand-driven pumps. When manually operated pumps are used, the following conditions must be observed. At least the minimum allowable air supply must be furnished to each diver. Arrangements must be made for dispatching a relief diver. Except in shallow, unobstructed water, only one diver may be supplied by a given set of pumps. Pumping must be steady and regular. Cooling water must be used if the air becomes uncomfortably warm. Lubrication instructions for the pumps must be carefully followed. Chapter 4. Caisson disease and effects of oxygen pressures. Caisson disease, also known as compressed air illness, is a condition from which divers and other workers in compressed air may suffer as a result of improper decompression. In diving, it is caused by ascending too rapidly to the surface. The disease presents in many forms, ranging from mild pain to paralysis, unconsciousness, or death. Severe cases may involve dyspnea and loss of consciousness within minutes or hours. Paralysis of motor and sensory nerves is common, often affecting the lower extremities and bladder. Mild cases are far more frequent and include pain in joints and muscles, vertigo, and general discomfort. Caisson disease rarely occurs at pressures below approximately 20 pounds excess pressure, equivalent to about 45 feet of sea water. The likelihood and severity of the disease increase with both pressure and duration of exposure unless proper decompression procedures are followed. Cause of Caisson disease. The accepted theory is that Caisson disease results from the liberation of nitrogen bubbles within the tissues and blood upon reduction of pressure. Nitrogen is absorbed by the blood in the lungs and carried throughout the body. While the blood saturates quickly, body tissues absorb nitrogen more slowly. It is estimated that half saturation of the body occurs in about 1 hour and full saturation in approximately 4 hours, with faster saturation occurring during hard work. Upon rapid decompression, nitrogen comes out of solution and forms bubbles, similar to gas released from a carbonated beverage. Nitrogen is more soluble in fatty tissues than in other tissues and is released more slowly. This explains why spinal cord involvement, joint pain, and susceptibility among overweight individuals are common features of Caisson disease. Desaturation occurs at roughly the same rate as saturation. A body that requires 4 hours to saturate will require at least 4 hours to desaturate safely. Pressure ratios and stage decompression. It has been found that the human body can tolerate a sudden pressure reduction when the ratio between absolute pressures does not exceed approximately 2.3 to 1. Below this ratio, nitrogen bubbles formed are small enough to pass through capillaries without causing injury. Based on this principle, stage decompression tables were developed. These tables require the diver to ascend rapidly from deep water to a shallower depth, followed by a series of controlled stops. The time spent at each stop ensures that the ratio between nitrogen pressure in the tissues and ambient pressure does not exceed safe limits. Uniform slow decompression is less safe after short exposures because nitrogen continues to saturate the tissues during ascent. Stage decompression has proven far more effective in preventing serious Caisson disease. These decompression tables have been tested extensively and must be strictly followed in all diving operations. While mild symptoms may still occur, serious cases are prevented when the tables are obeyed. Importance of shallow water stops. A significant portion of decompression time is spent in shallow water. This is essential because gas volume doubles between 33 feet and the surface, making bubble formation most dangerous in this zone. For this reason, divers benefit from descending rapidly, limiting bottom time, and ascending quickly to the first decompression stop, where controlled desaturation begins. Role of oxygen in decompression. Desaturation can be accelerated by reducing nitrogen pressure in the helmet or by supplying oxygen. This is particularly useful in shallow water. However, oxygen under pressure is dangerous. Oxygen pressures of 2 atmospheres are risky with prolonged exposure, while 3 atmospheres or more are extremely dangerous and may cause rapid death from oxygen poisoning. Symptoms. Symptoms of caisson disease usually appear within minutes to an hour after decompression, though delayed onset up to 15 hours has been reported. Symptoms vary depending on the amount and location of nitrogen bubbles and include pain in joints, muscles, and bones, vertigo and inner ear disturbances, paralysis or weakness, dyspnea and chest tightness, loss of consciousness. Large gas emboli may affect the brain or spinal cord, causing serious neurological deficits. Statistical observations. Analysis of several thousand cases showed that the vast majority involved pain, with smaller percentages showing neurological symptoms, respiratory distress, or unconsciousness. Fatal cases were associated primarily with severe neurological involvement, collapse, or unconsciousness. Pain in the abdomen, vomiting, hemorrhages under the skin, and girdle-type pain around the trunk are considered particularly dangerous signs. Case observations. Documented Navy cases demonstrate that improper or hurried decompression leads to joint pain, severe skin reactions, weakness, collapse, and in extreme cases, near-death conditions. In many cases, recompression followed by controlled decompression resulted in full recovery, even when symptoms were severe. Irregular or shortened decompression stages were repeatedly associated with symptom onset. Prognosis. With immediate recompression and proper decompression, recovery is usually complete, even in severe cases. Without recompression, recovery may still occur at lower pressures, but outcomes become increasingly uncertain as pressure increases. Treatment. Effective treatment requires immediate recompression in a compression chamber. Delay reduces effectiveness. If no chamber is available, the diver must be recompressed by returning him to depth as quickly as possible to at least half the absolute pressure of the original exposure. Submarines with diving compartments may be used as emergency recompression chambers. Portable recompression chambers are available for deep diving operations and are considered essential equipment. Effects of oxygen pressure. Experimental observations show that oxygen becomes toxic at elevated pressures. Moderate increases cause lung irritation and congestion. Higher pressures result in hemorrhage, pneumonia-like conditions, convulsions, and death. Oxygen pressures equivalent to 2 atmospheres are dangerous with prolonged exposure. Pressures of 3 to 4 atmospheres rapidly cause severe poisoning. These effects limit the safe use of oxygen in diving and escape apparatus. In self-contained oxygen apparatus used at normal atmospheric pressure, oxygen toxicity is not a concern. However, insufficient oxygen supply and carbon dioxide buildup can cause unconsciousness without warning, particularly during physical exertion. Hard work significantly increases oxygen demand. Apparatus supplying inadequate oxygen flow may be safe at rest but dangerous during exertion, such as climbing or heavy labor. Chapter 6. Detailed description of diving apparatus. Diving outfits. Diving apparatus issued to naval vessels is grouped into 3 standard outfits, designated numbers 1, 2, and 3. Diving outfit number 1 is supplied to first and second-rate vessels. It is complete in every respect, includes a 2-cylinder, double-acting diving air pump, and is equipped for 2 divers with an adequate allowance of spare parts. Large vessels are issued 2 such outfits. Diving outfit number 2 is supplied to destroyer-class vessels. It is essentially the same as outfit number 1, but does not include a diving air pump or its accessories. Diving outfit number 3 is intended for submarines. It is a compact outfit for 1 diver only and is specially arranged for limited stowage space. For special service conditions, these allowances may be modified and special outfits assembled as required. Weighted belts. The improved weighted diving belt consists of removable lead weights arranged to provide proper balance and stability. Shoulder straps pass over the breastplate and cross behind the diver to prevent shifting. A jock strap holds the belt in position and prevents the helmet from riding up when the dress is inflated. This design corrects earlier problems in which belts slipped upward, especially when divers worked head down, creating instability and making recovery difficult. The improved belt is adjustable, more comfortable, and provides better balance than earlier solid lead weights. Helmet cushion. The helmet cushion is worn around the neck inside the diving dress. It supports the helmet when the diver is out of water and protects the shoulders from the weight of the helmet and attached fittings. It is made of drill fabric padded with hair felt. Woolens. Woolen underclothing, including shirts, drawers, socks, and gloves, is provided for cold water diving. These garments are worn over ordinary clothing and under the diving dress and gloves. They are color-fast and suitable for repeated washing. Diving dresses. Diving dresses are manufactured to fit various helmet types and are supplied in multiple sizes. Construction consists of vulcanized rubberized fabric reinforced at wear points. Rubber collars attach the dress to the breastplate, and elastic cuffs form watertight wrist seals. Leg flaps with lacings are provided to prevent air accumulation in the lower extremities when the diver is inverted, reducing the risk of uncontrolled ascent. Cuff expanders. Cuff expanders are metal tools used to open the rubber cuffs of the diving dress during dressing and undressing without damaging the material. Pressure gauges. Pressure gauges installed on diving air pumps indicate both air pressure and corresponding water depth. Separate gauges are provided for use with testing tanks. Test tank. The test tank is a steel pressure vessel used to verify the efficiency of diving air pumps and to serve as a low-pressure air reservoir. It is equipped with inlet and outlet connections, pressure gauge, safety valve, and drain fittings. Under jacket. The underjacket secures the rubber diving gloves to the diver's arms and provides additional insulation against cold. It is adjustable and may be tailored for proper fit. Rubber diving gloves. Rubber gloves are worn under the cuffs of the diving dress and laced to the underjacket sleeves. If air accumulates in the gloves, lowering the hands allows water pressure to force air back into the dress. Older mitten-style gloves attached externally are inferior and are being phased out in favor of the improved glove design. Pump wheel handles. Pump wheel handles are fitted directly to the flywheels of diving air pumps. They are constructed with independently rotating wooden grips to reduce fatigue and accommodate multiple pump operators. Diving helmets. 5 types of diving helmets are in general use, designated marks I through V. Differences include attachment methods, window arrangements, escape valve designs, and telephone fittings. The Mark V helmet is the Navy standard. It features an interrupted screw connection, narrow breastplate, improved escape valve, hinged faceplate, enhanced telephone connections, and a supplementary relief valve. It is lighter, more comfortable, and accommodates improved communication equipment. Air hose. The standard diving air hose is a sinking-type rubber hose reinforced with multiple layers of cotton duct. The hose resists twisting under pressure and is furnished in short and long lengths with standard couplings. New hose is pressure tested before service. Air hose fittings. Couplings, adapters, and manifolds are designed to provide secure, watertight connections. Leather washers seal threaded joints. Proper installation is critical, as hose failure under pressure may be fatal to the diver. Diving knives. The standard diving knife has a single-edged steel blade and a balanced design to ensure it falls point first if dropped. The knife is housed in a brass case and worn on the weighted belt. Diving ladder. The diving ladder is adjustable for use from small boats and is designed to provide proper inclination and secure footing during descent and ascent. Decompression ladder. The decompression ladder consists of sectional lengths with rungs spaced at 10-foot intervals corresponding to decompression stages. Weights keep the ladder vertical during use. Descending and distance lines. Heavy manila lines with attached weights are used as descending lines. Lighter distance lines allow the diver to measure horizontal distance from the descent point. Diving air pumps. Several types of manually operated diving air pumps exist, but the 2-cylinder, double-acting type has been adopted as standard due to its superior capacity and efficiency. Diving air pump, Mark III. The Mark III pump is a 2-cylinder, double-acting, manually operated pump. It delivers a high volume of air per revolution and is designed to operate efficiently at elevated pressures. Key features include precision-bored cylinders, leather-faced valves, oil separators to prevent hose contamination, dual delivery capability, robust flywheels, water-cooled cylinders, and a protective wooden case with stowage for tools and parts. Proper cooling and lubrication are essential to safe operation. Weighted diving shoes. Weighted diving shoes consist of wooden inner soles and lead outer soles with brass fittings. They provide stability and contribute to negative buoyancy. Diving lamp. The diving lamp consists of a sealed electric light assembly with protective globe and guard, powered through a watertight cable from the surface. Diving telephone. The diving telephone system includes a battery box, diver's headset and transmitter, attendance equipment, and a combined telephone cable and lifeline. It allows continuous communication between diver and surface personnel. Assembling tool for pistons. A special hinged metal tool is provided to insert pump pistons into cylinders without damaging leather seals. Overall trousers. Canvas overalls are worn over the diving dress during rough work to prevent abrasion and damage. Air control valve. The air control valve is a needle valve installed near the helmet when diving with compressed air supplies. It allows the diver to regulate air inflow. Urinals. Rubber urinals with non-return valves are provided for long-duration dives. Cast iron weights. Cast iron weights of various sizes are used for descending lines, decompression ladders, and marker buoys. Oil separators. Oil separators prevent lubricating oil from entering the diver's air supply by trapping oil carried over from pump cylinders. Chapter 6. Care, maintenance, and testing of diving apparatus. The efficiency and safety of diving operations depend directly upon the proper care and maintenance of the diving apparatus. Neglect, improper handling, or defective equipment may result in serious injury or death. General care. All diving apparatus must be kept clean, dry, and protected from oil, grease, acids, and excessive heat. Rubber parts deteriorate rapidly if exposed to sunlight, petroleum products, or sharp bending. After use, all apparatus must be thoroughly washed with fresh water, carefully dried, and properly stowed. Salt water left on metal fittings causes corrosion and must be removed immediately after diving operations. Care of diving dresses. Diving dresses must be washed inside and out with fresh water after each use. They should be hung to dry in a shaded, well-ventilated place. Direct sunlight or artificial heat must not be used, as this damages the rubber. Dresses should never be folded sharply. When stowed, they should be loosely rolled or hung to avoid creasing. Rubber collars and cuffs must be inspected regularly for cracks, hardening, or loss of elasticity. Minor cuts or punctures may be repaired with rubber cement and patches. Extensive damage requires replacement. Care of helmets and breastplates. Helmets and breastplates must be rinsed thoroughly with fresh water after use, dried, and lightly wiped with a clean cloth. All threads, valve seats, and bearing surfaces must be kept clean and free of grit. Valves should be disassembled periodically, cleaned, and inspected for wear. Valve seats must be smooth and tight. Gaskets must be replaced if worn, cracked, or hardened. The helmet windows must be kept clean and free of scratches to ensure good visibility. Glass should be replaced immediately if cracked. Care of air hoses. Air hoses must be flushed with fresh water after use and drained thoroughly. They should be dried internally by passing dry air through them before stowage. Hoses must be stored straight or in large, loose coils. Sharp bends, kinks, or crushing must be avoided. Hose couplings should be kept clean, and leather washers inspected and replaced when necessary. Hoses exposed to oil or grease must be removed from service. Care of air pumps and compressors. Air pumps must be kept clean, properly lubricated, and protected from dirt and moisture. Oil levels must be maintained according to instructions, and only approved lubricants with high flash points may be used. Cylinders must be cooled during operation to prevent overheating of the air. Cooling water must flow freely at all times. Valves, pistons, and packings must be inspected regularly. Worn or damaged parts must be replaced promptly. Care of telephone equipment. Telephone cables must be handled carefully to avoid kinks or sharp bends. After use, cables should be wiped dry and coiled loosely. Electrical connections must be kept clean and dry. Batteries must be maintained according to instructions and replaced when weak. Care of weights and shoes. Weighted belts and shoes must be rinsed with fresh water and dried after use. Leather straps and fastenings must be kept clean and flexible. Loose fastenings or cracked fittings must be repaired immediately. Testing diving apparatus. All diving apparatus must be tested periodically to ensure it is in proper working condition. Testing must also be conducted after repairs or long periods of storage. Testing diving dresses. Dresses are tested for leaks by fitting them with a helmet or test cap and inflating them slightly with air. The surface is then examined for escaping air, often by applying soapy water to suspected areas. Leaks must be marked and repaired before the dress is returned to service. Testing helmets and valves. Helmet valves must be tested to ensure proper operation. The non-return valve must close instantly when air supply is interrupted. Escape valves must open smoothly and regulate pressure correctly. Valves must seat properly and not leak under pressure. Testing air hoses. Air hoses must be tested under pressure before initial use and periodically thereafter. Test pressure must exceed normal working pressure. Any hose showing leakage, blistering, or weakness must be condemned. Testing air pumps. Air pumps must be tested using the test tank to verify delivery capacity and pressure. Pump output must meet required standards for the intended diving depth. Excessive heating, leakage, or irregular operation indicates defective equipment and requires correction before use. Records and inspections. Records must be kept of all tests, repairs, and inspections. Regular inspections must be conducted to ensure readiness of all diving equipment. Apparatus not meeting standards must be removed from service until corrected. Chapter 7. Preparation for diving and duties of attendants. Successful and safe diving operations depend upon careful preparation, proper organization, and strict attention to duty by all personnel concerned. No diver should be permitted to enter the water until all apparatus has been examined and all attendants fully understand their duties. Organization of the diving party. A diving party consists of the diver, a tender, pump operators or air supply attendants, a signalman, and a supervising officer or petty officer. Each member has specific duties and must perform them precisely. The tender is directly responsible for the diver while submerged and must give full attention to the diver's signals, condition, and safety at all times. Examination of apparatus before diving. Before each dive, all apparatus must be carefully examined. This includes the diving dress, helmet, breastplate, air hose, lifeline, telephone equipment, valves, weights, and pumps. All joints must be tight, gaskets in good condition, valves operating freely, and hoses free from defects. The air supply must be tested to ensure adequate pressure and volume. Dressing the diver. The diver must be dressed methodically and without haste. Woolen underclothing is worn when required, followed by the diving dress. The weighted belt and shoes are then fitted. The breastplate is placed and secured to the dress collar. The helmet is then attached, taking care that the gasket is properly seated and the locking mechanism fully engaged. The air hose and lifeline are connected, and telephone equipment tested. Gloves are secured last. Testing after dressing. After dressing, air is slowly turned on and the diver carefully examined for leaks. The diver tests the operation of the escape valve and air control valve. The non-return valve must be tested by briefly shutting off the air supply to ensure it closes instantly. Communication with the surface is tested before the diver leaves the deck. Duties of the tender. The tender must remain at the diving station at all times while the diver is submerged. He must never leave the lifeline unattended. The tender controls the descent and ascent of the diver, signals instructions, and watches for irregularities in the lifeline or air hose. Any unusual movement, slackness, or tension must be immediately investigated. The tender must keep the diver supplied with sufficient slack in the hose and lifeline to permit free movement, but not so much as to cause entanglement. Duties of pump operators or air supply attendants. Pump operators must maintain steady, uninterrupted air supply at the required pressure. Pumping must never stop while the diver is below. Operators must watch pressure gauges continuously and report any irregularities immediately. Relief operators must be ready at all times. Duties of the signalman. The signalman transmits and receives signals between the diver and the tender when telephone communication is unavailable or as a backup. All members of the diving party must be thoroughly familiar with the standard signal code. Signals. Signals are transmitted by pulls on the lifeline. Clear, deliberate signals must be used. Common signals include instructions to lower or hoist the diver, requests for more or less air, reports of distress, and confirmation signals. Confused or irregular signals must always be treated as a distress signal and acted upon immediately. Lowering the diver. The diver must be lowered slowly and steadily, never dropped. The rate of descent must be controlled to allow pressure equalization and proper adjustment of air supply. During descent, the tender must ensure that the air hose and lifeline run freely and do not foul. Conduct of the diver underwater. The diver must move deliberately and avoid unnecessary exertion. He must maintain proper buoyancy by regulating the escape valve. If any difficulty is encountered, the diver must signal immediately. The diver must never attempt to remedy serious equipment failures alone. Ascending. Ascent must be conducted according to prescribed procedures. Rapid ascents are dangerous and must be avoided except in extreme emergencies. The tender controls ascent speed and ensures proper decompression stops are observed when required. Relief diver. A relief diver must always be available when diving operations are conducted. The relief diver must be dressed or ready to dress immediately in the event of an emergency. Discipline and precautions. Strict discipline is essential. No deviation from established procedures is permitted. Diving operations must be suspended immediately if unsafe conditions arise, including equipment failure, weather changes, or personnel fatigue. Chapter 8. Conduct of diving operations. The safe and successful execution of diving operations depends upon strict adherence to established procedures, constant vigilance, and sound judgment. Carelessness, haste, or disregard of regulations may result in serious injury or death. General principles. Diving operations must never be undertaken without proper authority, adequate equipment, and trained personnel. The condition of the sea, weather, current, temperature, and visibility must be carefully considered before commencing work. No diver shall be sent below unless a relief diver and sufficient air supply are immediately available. Descent. The descent must be slow and controlled. Rapid descent may cause discomfort, ear injury, or dangerous pressure effects. The diver should equalize pressure frequently and signal if difficulty is encountered. Air pressure must always slightly exceed the surrounding water pressure to prevent suit collapse. The tender must regulate the rate of descent and ensure that air hose and lifeline remain clear. Working on the bottom. The diver must work deliberately and avoid unnecessary exertion. Excessive effort increases air consumption, carbon dioxide production, and fatigue. The diver should maintain neutral or slight negative buoyancy and avoid allowing air to accumulate in the lower extremities. If inverted, care must be taken to prevent air from shifting toward the feet, which could result in loss of control. Tools must be handled carefully, and sharp edges avoided to prevent damage to the diving dress or air hose. Communication. Constant communication between the diver and surface personnel must be maintained. Telephone communication is preferred, but lifeline signals must always be monitored as a backup. Failure to receive expected signals must be treated as an emergency. Movement underwater. The diver should walk rather than swim when possible. Swimming increases exertion and may lead to rapid fatigue or uncontrolled buoyancy changes. When moving against a current, frequent rest periods should be taken. If the current is too strong, the dive must be abandoned. Entanglement. The diver must avoid fouling the air hose or lifeline on wreckage, rocks, or debris. If entangled, the diver should stop, remain calm, and signal for assistance. Cutting tools may be used only as a last resort and with extreme caution to avoid severing the air hose or lifeline. Ascent and return. Ascent must be slow and controlled. The diver must never ascend rapidly except to escape immediate danger. During ascent, the escape valve must be carefully regulated to prevent overinflation. The tender must control the hoisting speed and ensure decompression requirements are observed. Decompression. When decompression is required, the diver must stop at prescribed depths for the specified durations. These stops are essential to prevent caisson disease. No deviation from decompression schedules is permitted unless required to save life. Emergencies. In the event of air supply failure, hose rupture, or other serious malfunction, the diver must signal immediately. Surface personnel must respond without delay. If necessary, the diver may be hauled to the surface as rapidly as possible, accepting the risk of decompression sickness to avoid immediate death. Relief diver operation. When a relief diver is dispatched, communication and coordination are critical. The relief diver must follow the same descent and safety procedures as the primary diver. The primary diver must be assisted without creating additional hazards. Termination of the dive. Upon completion of work, the diver must be brought up carefully and examined immediately after removal of the helmet. The diver must remain under observation for several hours to detect delayed symptoms of caisson disease. Records. Accurate records of depth, time, air supply, decompression stops, and any unusual occurrences must be maintained for each dive. These records are essential for evaluating diver health and improving future operations. Chapter 9. Accidents, Emergencies, and Rescue of Divers. Accidents in diving are usually the result of neglect, improper preparation, defective equipment, or failure to follow established procedures. Prompt recognition and immediate action are essential to prevent serious injury or death. General principles. Every diving operation must be conducted with the expectation that accidents may occur. Personnel must be trained to recognize danger signals and respond instantly and decisively. Any irregularity in signals, air supply, or diver behavior must be treated as an emergency until proven otherwise. Failure of air supply. Interruption of air supply is one of the most dangerous emergencies in diving. Causes include pump failure, hose rupture, valve malfunction, or operator error. If air supply fails, the diver must signal immediately. Surface personnel must restore air at once. If air cannot be restored instantly, the diver must be hauled to the surface without delay, regardless of decompression risk. The non-return valve on the helmet is critical in preventing fatal pressure imbalance when air supply fails. Its proper operation must be verified before every dive. Bursting of air hose. If the air hose bursts below the waterline, air pressure is immediately lost. The diver must be brought to the surface at once. If the rupture occurs above the waterline, air may continue to flow. The hose should be raised above the break if possible to maintain pressure temporarily while corrective action is taken. Leaks in helmet or dress. Small leaks are usually not dangerous if air supply is adequate. Large leaks may cause flooding and require immediate termination of the dive. If water enters the helmet, the diver must remain upright and signal at once. The diver must be brought to the surface carefully but without unnecessary delay. Failure of telephone communication. Loss of telephone communication is not, by itself, an emergency if lifeline signals remain functional. The dive may continue at the discretion of the supervising officer. If both telephone and lifeline communication fail, the diver must be brought up immediately. Entanglement. If entangled, the diver must stop, avoid struggling, and signal for assistance. Excessive movement increases the risk of worsening the entanglement. The diver may use the knife only as a last resort. Cutting the air hose or lifeline may be fatal. If the diver cannot free himself, a relief diver must be dispatched promptly. Diver falling or sudden descent. A fall or sudden drop to greater depth is extremely dangerous due to rapid pressure increase. If a diver falls, air supply must be increased immediately to counteract suit collapse. The diver must be brought under control and raised cautiously. Such accidents frequently result in severe squeeze injuries and are often fatal if not corrected instantly. Uncontrolled ascent, blowing up. Uncontrolled ascent occurs when excessive air accumulates in the dress, creating extreme buoyancy. The diver may be carried rapidly to the surface headfirst, often with fatal consequences. If observed, the air supply must be reduced immediately. The diver should attempt to vent air through the escape valve if possible. Prevention depends on proper weighting, correct valve adjustment, and disciplined air control. Loss of consciousness underwater. Loss of consciousness may result from carbon dioxide accumulation, oxygen deficiency, illness, or injury. If suspected, the diver must be brought to the surface immediately. A relief diver may be dispatched to assist if necessary. Once on the surface, the helmet should be removed promptly and artificial respiration begun if breathing is impaired. Rescue of an unconscious diver. When rescuing an unconscious diver, speed is critical. The diver must be raised as quickly as possible while maintaining airway integrity. Decompression rules may be disregarded to save life. Upon reaching the surface, the helmet must be removed immediately. The diver should be laid flat, kept warm, and artificial respiration administered if required. Medical assistance must be obtained without delay. Caisson disease emergencies. If symptoms of caisson disease appear, the diver must be recompressed immediately if possible. Delay greatly reduces the effectiveness of treatment. Even mild symptoms must be treated seriously. If no recompression chamber is available, the diver may be returned to depth as an emergency measure, followed by controlled decompression. Heat, cold, and exhaustion. Divers may suffer from excessive cold or overheating depending on conditions. Cold reduces efficiency and judgment and increases accident risk. Overheating may occur from warm air supply or excessive exertion. Divers showing signs of extreme fatigue must be brought up and relieved. Prevention of accidents. Most diving accidents are preventable through proper training, disciplined procedures, well-maintained equipment, and constant vigilance. Every member of the diving party is responsible for safety. Failure at any point may have fatal consequences. Chapter 10. Decompression Rules and Tables. The danger of caisson disease increases with depth and duration of exposure. Safe ascent from depth therefore requires adherence to definite decompression rules based on experimental and practical observations. Fundamental principles of decompression. Decompression is the controlled reduction of pressure following exposure to increased pressure. Its purpose is to allow nitrogen absorbed by the body to be eliminated safely through respiration without forming injurious bubbles in the tissues or blood. The rate at which nitrogen is absorbed and released depends upon pressure, time, and physical activity. Rapid ascent without proper decompression causes nitrogen to come out of solution too quickly, resulting in caisson disease. Saturation and desaturation. The body does not absorb nitrogen instantaneously. Partial saturation occurs relatively quickly, while complete saturation requires several hours. Similarly, desaturation requires time proportional to the degree of saturation. A diver who has been under pressure for only a short time requires less decompression than one who has remained longer at the same depth. Pressure ratios. Experience has shown that sudden reductions of pressure are safe only when the ratio between the higher and lower absolute pressures does not exceed approximately 2.3 to 1. Exceeding this ratio greatly increases the risk of bubble formation. Decompression procedures are designed to ensure that this ratio is not exceeded at any stage of ascent. Stage decompression. Instead of ascending slowly and continuously, the diver ascends rapidly to a predetermined depth and then remains there for a specified time. This process is repeated in stages until the surface is reached. Stage decompression is safer than uniform slow ascent because it prevents excessive nitrogen absorption during ascent and allows controlled elimination at each stop. Shallow water stops. The greatest danger of bubble formation occurs near the surface, where gas volume increases rapidly with small pressure changes. Consequently, a large portion of decompression time is spent in shallow water. Divers must never shorten or omit shallow water stops, even if earlier stages have been properly completed. Use of decompression tables. Decompression tables specify the depths and durations of required stops based on maximum depth reached and total bottom time. The diver's depth is defined as the maximum depth attained, not the average depth. Bottom time begins when descent starts and ends when ascent begins. The tables must be followed exactly. Deviations greatly increase the risk of caisson disease. Interrupted decompression. If decompression is interrupted due to emergency, the diver must be recompressed as soon as possible and the decompression restarted according to prescribed rules. Failure to complete required decompression is one of the most common causes of serious decompression sickness. Repetitive dives. Successive dives increase nitrogen accumulation in the body. Adequate surface intervals must be allowed between dives to permit partial desaturation. Failure to account for residual nitrogen significantly increases risk, even if each individual dive appears to be within limits. Effect of work and temperature. Hard physical labor increases nitrogen absorption and requires more conservative decompression. Cold retards circulation and slows nitrogen elimination, increasing risk. Divers who are cold or exhausted are more susceptible to caisson disease. General rules. Divers must be in good physical condition before diving. Alcohol, fatigue, and illness increase susceptibility to decompression sickness. After diving, exertion should be avoided for several hours. Divers should remain under observation for delayed symptoms. Limitations. The decompression tables are based on available experimental data and operational experience. While they greatly reduce risk, they do not guarantee absolute safety. Strict adherence to the tables has been shown to prevent serious cases of caisson disease in the vast majority of dives. Chapter 11. Special diving operations and conditions. Certain classes of diving work present special hazards and require additional precautions beyond those of ordinary operations. These include deep diving, night diving, wreck diving, diving in currents, contaminated water, and operations from small boats. Deep diving. Deep diving greatly increases physical strain, air consumption, and the danger of decompression sickness. Only experienced divers in excellent physical condition should be employed. Before deep dives, all apparatus must be examined with special care. Air supply capacity must be ample, and reserved air must be immediately available for both the working diver and a relief diver. Bottom time must be strictly limited, and decompression procedures must be followed without deviation. Divers must be carefully observed for many hours after completion of deep dives. Night diving. Night diving is inherently dangerous due to reduced visibility and increased difficulty in communication and supervision. Adequate lighting must be provided for both the diver and the surface party. Extra care must be taken to prevent fouling of lines. Night diving should be undertaken only when necessary and under the supervision of experienced personnel. Diving in currents. Currents greatly increase exertion and the risk of exhaustion or loss of control. If the current is strong enough to impede movement, diving operations should be postponed. When diving in moderate currents, the diver must descend and work from the upstream side. Lines must be kept taut, and additional attendants may be required to manage hose and lifeline. Wreck diving. Wreck diving presents extreme hazards due to entanglement, sharp edges, confined spaces, and unstable structures. The diver must proceed slowly and methodically. Loose debris must be avoided, and overhead obstructions treated with caution. Air hose and lifeline must be carefully tended to prevent fouling. A relief diver must be ready at all times. Diving in contaminated water. Diving in polluted or contaminated water presents risks of infection and poisoning. Protective undergarments must be worn, and any cuts or abrasions covered before diving. After such dives, the diver must bathe thoroughly and disinfect exposed skin. Equipment must be cleaned carefully after use to prevent corrosion or health hazards. Diving from small boats. Diving from small boats is hazardous due to limited stability, space, and air supply capacity. Boats must be securely anchored or moored. Care must be taken to prevent capsizing due to movement of personnel or equipment. Air supply arrangements must be reliable, and a relief diver must still be available when practicable. Ice diving. Diving under ice is extremely dangerous and should be attempted only when absolutely necessary. A secure opening must be maintained, and lines must be carefully managed to prevent loss of the diver. Communication must be maintained at all times, and emergency procedures planned in advance. Work in confined spaces. Diving inside pipes, tunnels, or other confined spaces requires extreme caution. Air circulation may be restricted, increasing the risk of carbon dioxide accumulation. Frequent communication and monitoring are essential. The diver must never enter confined spaces without a clear plan for exit and rescue. Handling explosives underwater. Handling explosives underwater requires strict adherence to safety regulations. Only trained personnel may conduct such operations. Electrical circuits must be protected against accidental firing. Diving operations involving explosives must be carefully coordinated and supervised. General precautions. Special operations magnify all ordinary risks of diving. Thorough planning, disciplined execution, and readiness to abandon operations at the first sign of danger are essential. No task is sufficiently important to justify unnecessary risk to life. Chapter 12. Qualifications, Training, and Physical Requirements of Divers. Diving is hazardous duty requiring exceptional physical fitness, intelligence, judgment, and discipline. Only carefully selected and thoroughly trained personnel shall be employed as divers. Qualifications of divers. A diver must possess sound physical health, strong constitution, steady nerves, and the ability to remain calm under stress. Good eyesight, hearing, and coordination are essential. Candidates must be intelligent, reliable, and capable of understanding instructions and recognizing danger. Carelessness, recklessness, or inability to follow orders disqualifies a man from diving duty. Physical requirements. Divers must be free from diseases of the heart, lungs, ears, and nervous system. Any condition interfering with circulation, respiration, or pressure equalization is disqualifying. Good dental condition is required, as infected teeth may cause serious trouble under pressure. Candidates must not suffer from hernia, chronic rheumatism, epilepsy, or other conditions that may be aggravated by pressure. Medical examination. All candidates must undergo a thorough medical examination before qualification and at regular intervals thereafter. Medical examinations must include evaluation of heart and lung function, hearing, eyesight, and general physical condition. Any illness or injury occurring between examinations must be reported immediately. Divers recovering from illness, injury, or fatigue must not resume diving until cleared by medical authority. Training of divers. Training must be progressive and systematic. Instruction begins with theoretical knowledge of diving physics, apparatus, and procedures, followed by practical training in shallow water. Candidates must become thoroughly familiar with all parts of the diving apparatus, including assembly, adjustment, maintenance, and emergency procedures. Training dives must begin at shallow depths and gradually increase as experience and confidence are gained. No candidate shall be taken to depth until he has demonstrated competence and composure at lesser depths. Practical instruction. Practical instruction includes dressing and undressing, handling tools underwater, communication by signals, buoyancy control, and emergency drills. Candidates must be trained to respond instinctively to emergencies such as air failure, entanglement, or sudden pressure changes. Discipline and conduct. Strict discipline is essential in diving operations. Orders must be obeyed instantly and without question. Divers must never take unnecessary risks or attempt to exceed prescribed limits. Confidence must be based on training and experience, not recklessness. Fatigue and fitness. Fatigue greatly increases the danger of diving. Divers must be adequately rested before diving and relieved at the first sign of exhaustion. Alcohol consumption before diving is strictly prohibited. Divers must maintain general physical fitness through regular exercise and proper habits. Supervision and responsibility. Diving operations must be supervised by qualified officers or petty officers familiar with diving procedures and risks. Supervisors are responsible for ensuring that all regulations are followed and that divers are not exposed to unnecessary danger. Disqualification. Any diver who exhibits symptoms of decompression sickness, serious illness, or physical deterioration must be removed from diving duty until medically cleared. Persistent nervousness, poor judgment, or disregard for safety rules is grounds for permanent disqualification. Continued proficiency. Divers must maintain proficiency through regular practice. Long periods without diving require refresher training before resuming duty. Knowledge of updated procedures and equipment must be kept current. Chapter 13. Diving signals and signal codes. Reliable communication between the diver and the surface is essential to safe diving operations. Failure to understand or correctly interpret signals has been a frequent cause of accidents. General principles. Signals must be simple, distinct, and universally understood by all members of the diving party. All personnel involved in diving operations must be thoroughly familiar with the standard signal code before any dive is undertaken. Signals are transmitted primarily by pulls on the lifeline. Telephone communication, when available, supplements but does not replace lifeline signals. Importance of signal discipline. Signals must be given deliberately and acknowledged promptly. Indistinct, irregular, or confused signals must always be treated as danger signals. The tender must never assume the meaning of a signal. If there is doubt, the diver must be brought up immediately. Standard signal system. Signals consist of a series of pulls on the lifeline, given sharply and distinctly, with pauses between signals to prevent confusion. Each signal has a definite meaning and must not be varied. Common signals. One pull signifies "Are you all right?" when given from the surface, and "I am all right" when given by the diver. Two pulls signify "Lower" when given from the surface, and "Lower me" when given by the diver. Three pulls signify "Hoist" when given from the surface, and "Hoist me" when given by the diver. Four pulls signify "More air." Five pulls signify "Less air." A series of rapid or irregular pulls signifies danger or distress and requires immediate action. Acknowledgement of signals. Every signal must be acknowledged by repeating the same number of pulls. Failure to acknowledge a signal must be treated as an emergency. Use of telephone with signals. When telephone communication is available, verbal instructions may be used, but lifeline signals must still be monitored continuously. If telephone communication fails, all communication immediately reverts to lifeline signals. Special signals. Special signals may be arranged for specific operations, but they must be agreed upon in advance and clearly understood by all parties. No unauthorized or improvised signals are permitted. Signals during emergencies. In emergencies, the diver must signal danger immediately using rapid, continuous pulls. Surface personnel must respond without delay and take decisive action. Training in signals. All divers, tenders, and attendants must practice signal transmission and interpretation regularly. Signals must become instinctive, as hesitation or misunderstanding may cost lives. Chapter 14. Diving logs, reports, and records. Accurate records of all diving operations are essential for safety, accountability, and the improvement of future practice. Incomplete or inaccurate logs have repeatedly been found to contribute to accidents and misjudgment. Purpose of diving records. Diving records serve multiple purposes. They provide a permanent account of operations performed, document exposure to pressure, assist in the diagnosis of illness or injury, and furnish data for evaluating diving methods and equipment. Records must be kept with care and honesty. Any attempt to alter or falsify records is a serious offense. Diving log. A diving log must be maintained for every diving operation. The log must be kept by a designated attendant and reviewed by the supervising officer. Each log entry must include the name of the diver, date, location, purpose of the dive, depth, duration, method of air supply, and decompression performed. Recording depth and time. Depth recorded must be the maximum depth reached, not an average. Time begins when the diver starts descent and ends when ascent begins. All decompression stops and their durations must be recorded exactly as executed. Any interruption, delay, or deviation must be clearly noted. Air supply records. The method of air supply must be recorded, including pumps, compressors, accumulators, or flasks used. Any irregularity in air pressure, delivery, temperature, or quality must be entered in the log. Physical condition of the diver. The diver's condition before and after the dive must be noted. Any symptoms of fatigue, pain, dizziness, numbness, or discomfort must be recorded, regardless of severity. Delayed symptoms appearing hours after the dive must be added to the record when reported. Equipment condition. The condition of all diving apparatus must be noted before and after the dive. Any defects, failures, repairs, or replacements must be entered, along with corrective actions taken. Accident and incident reports. All accidents, near accidents, or unusual occurrences must be fully documented. Reports must describe the sequence of events, actions taken, and outcomes. Conclusions must be based on observed facts, not speculation. These reports are essential for preventing recurrence and improving safety procedures. Use of records for medical purposes. Medical officers rely on diving records to diagnose and treat caisson disease and other diving-related conditions. Incomplete records may result in incorrect treatment and serious consequences. Preservation of records. Diving logs and reports must be preserved as official records. They must be stored in a secure location and be available for inspection by authorized personnel. Responsibility. The supervising officer is responsible for ensuring that records are properly kept. Every member of the diving party shares responsibility for accurate reporting of conditions and events. Failure to maintain proper records constitutes negligence and endangers future operations. Chapter 15. Miscellaneous diving operations and practical notes. This chapter contains practical information and observations derived from experience in diving operations which do not fall under previous headings but are essential to efficient and safe work. General practical considerations. Sound judgment and experience are as important as strict adherence to rules. Conditions underwater vary widely, and the diver must adapt while remaining within established safety limits. No rule can replace alertness, discipline, and common sense. Use of tools underwater. Tools must be selected with regard to underwater conditions. Heavy tools are preferable, as they are less affected by buoyancy. Care must be taken to avoid dropping tools, which may damage equipment or injure the diver. Tools should be secured by lanyards when practicable. Hammering and striking operations should be conducted deliberately to avoid loss of balance or entanglement. Fastening and unfastening underwater. Bolts, nuts, and fittings are more difficult to manipulate underwater due to reduced dexterity and visibility. Threads must be cleaned before engagement. Excessive force must be avoided, as damaged threads may render fittings unusable. Handling materials. Materials should be lowered and raised under control. Sudden movement or swinging loads are hazardous. When guiding loads, the diver must keep clear of pinch points and avoid placing himself beneath suspended weights. Visibility and orientation. Visibility may be poor due to turbidity, darkness, or disturbance of the bottom. The diver must work methodically and maintain awareness of orientation at all times. Frequent reference to the lifeline helps prevent disorientation. Work in mud, silt, and sand. Fine sediments are easily disturbed and may completely obscure vision. In such conditions, work must proceed slowly, using touch rather than sight. Sudden movements should be avoided. Use of lines and buoys. Lines and buoys are essential for marking positions, guiding movement, and maintaining orientation. Lines must be properly weighted and tended to prevent fouling. Lifting operations. Lifting underwater must be carefully planned. The buoyancy of objects changes as they are raised, and loads may become unstable. Airbags or buoyancy devices must be inflated gradually and controlled at all times. Diving in cold weather. Cold increases stiffness, reduces dexterity, and accelerates fatigue. Adequate insulation must be provided, and dives should be shortened in cold conditions. Effect of fatigue. Fatigue impairs judgment and reaction time. Divers must be relieved promptly at the first sign of exhaustion. No diver should be pressed to continue work beyond safe limits. Adaptation to conditions. Each dive presents unique conditions. The diver and supervisor must be prepared to modify plans or abandon work when circumstances warrant. Completion of the task must never be placed above safety. Final observations. The accumulated experience of diving operations demonstrates that most accidents result from haste, neglect, or disregard of established precautions. Careful preparation, disciplined execution, and respect for the dangers of the environment are the foundation of safe and successful diving. Chapter 16. Self-contained diving and rescue apparatus. In addition to standard surface-supplied diving equipment, the Navy employs self-contained apparatus for special purposes, particularly rescue work, submarine escape, and operations where hose-supplied air is impracticable. General description. Self-contained diving apparatus carries its own breathing gas supply and does not rely on an external air hose. These appliances are intended primarily for short-duration use and limited depths. They are not substitutes for standard diving apparatus in prolonged or deep operations. Types of self-contained apparatus. Two principal types are in use. Apparatus supplying compressed air. Apparatus supplying oxygen or oxygen-enriched mixtures. Each type has distinct advantages, limitations, and hazards. Compressed air apparatus. Compressed air apparatus consists of a breathing helmet or mouthpiece supplied from a small high-pressure cylinder worn by the diver. Duration is strictly limited by cylinder capacity. Depth is limited by available pressure and air consumption. These devices are useful for shallow water work, emergency repairs, and situations where rapid deployment is essential. Oxygen apparatus. Oxygen apparatus supplies oxygen from a cylinder to a breathing bag through a regulating valve. Exhaled gas is purified by passage through a chemical absorber that removes carbon dioxide, allowing oxygen reuse. This type of apparatus produces no bubbles, making it suitable for rescue operations in confined spaces such as submarines. Dangers of oxygen apparatus. Oxygen under pressure is dangerous. Oxygen apparatus must never be used below safe depth limits. Exceeding depth limits may result in oxygen poisoning, leading to convulsions, unconsciousness, and death without warning. Strict adherence to depth and time limits is mandatory. Carbon dioxide absorption. The effectiveness of oxygen apparatus depends on the proper functioning of the carbon dioxide absorber. Failure of the absorber results in rapid accumulation of carbon dioxide, causing distress, confusion, and loss of consciousness. Absorbent material must be fresh, dry, and properly packed. Training requirements. Personnel using self-contained apparatus must receive specialized training. They must understand the limitations of the equipment, recognize symptoms of oxygen toxicity and carbon dioxide poisoning, and practice emergency procedures. Use in rescue operations. Self-contained apparatus is invaluable for rescue operations where surface-supplied air cannot be used. Rescue divers must be carefully selected, well-trained, and supported by surface personnel whenever possible. Maintenance and inspection. Self-contained apparatus must be inspected before and after each use. Cylinders must be properly charged, valves tested, and breathing circuits checked for leaks. Chemical absorbents must be replaced as required. Limitations. Self-contained apparatus has limited endurance and depth capability. It must never be used beyond its designed limits or as a substitute for standard diving equipment when surface supply is available. Chapter 17. Submarine escape and rescue operations. The escape and rescue of personnel from submarines present special and extreme hazards. Such operations must be conducted only by trained personnel using approved apparatus and procedures. General considerations. Submarine accidents may involve flooding, toxic gases, lack of ventilation, darkness, and extreme psychological stress. Calmness, discipline, and strict adherence to procedure are essential. Rescue operations must be planned with full consideration of depth, internal pressure, available air supply, and the physical condition of personnel inside the submarine. Escape from submarines. Escape from a disabled submarine may be effected by individual ascent or by rescue apparatus, depending on depth and conditions. Before escape, internal pressure must be equalized with surrounding water pressure to permit opening of escape hatches. Failure to equalize pressure may make escape impossible or fatal. Use of escape apparatus. Submarine escape apparatus consists of self-contained breathing equipment designed for short-duration ascent. Personnel must be trained to don and operate escape apparatus quickly and correctly under stress. Escape must be orderly. Panic or haste increases the likelihood of injury or death. Ascent during escape. Ascent must be controlled to avoid lung overexpansion and decompression injury. Personnel must exhale continuously during ascent to prevent rupture of the lungs. Rapid ascent from shallow depths is particularly dangerous due to rapid pressure change. Dangers during escape. Major dangers include drowning, decompression sickness, oxygen poisoning, and disorientation. Loss of buoyancy control or entanglement may result in fatal outcomes. Cold water and exhaustion further increase risk. Rescue of submarine personnel. Rescue may be effected by divers, rescue chambers, or lifting the submarine when possible. Divers engaged in rescue operations face additional hazards due to limited visibility, confined spaces, and unstable structures. Use of rescue chambers. Rescue chambers allow personnel to be transferred from a disabled submarine to the surface without individual ascent. Pressure inside the chamber must be carefully controlled to match submarine pressure before attachment. After transfer, controlled decompression is required. Role of divers in rescue. Divers may be required to clear hatches, attach rescue apparatus, or guide escapees. Such work must be performed deliberately and with extreme caution. Divers must be prepared for long durations, cold exposure, and complex tasks. Training and preparation. All submarine personnel must receive training in escape procedures and apparatus use. Rescue teams must conduct regular drills to maintain proficiency. Final considerations. Submarine escape and rescue operations are among the most dangerous undertaken. Success depends upon preparation, discipline, and the courage and skill of trained personnel. Chapter 18. Diving in connection with shipwork and salvage. Diving operations in support of shipwork and salvage are among the most demanding duties assigned to divers. These operations involve heavy labor, complex rigging, confined spaces, and unstable structures, often under adverse conditions. General considerations. Salvage and shipwork diving require careful planning, experienced supervision, and close coordination between divers and surface personnel. Conditions may change rapidly due to tides, weather, shifting loads, or structural failure. Operations must be halted immediately if safety is compromised. Hull inspection and repair. Divers are frequently employed to inspect hulls for damage, fouling, leaks, or obstructions. When making temporary repairs, such as plugging leaks or securing patches, the diver must work methodically and ensure that materials are properly seated and secured. Permanent repairs must never be attempted unless conditions permit safe execution. Patching and stopping leaks. Leak stopping may involve wooden plugs, soft patches, collision mats, or cement compounds. Pressure increases with depth, making effective sealing more difficult. Patches must be applied squarely and supported adequately to resist water pressure. Divers must avoid placing themselves directly in line with high-pressure leaks, which may cause injury. Propellers, rudders, and shafts. Work on propellers, rudders, and shafts presents hazards due to sharp edges, confined spaces, and the possibility of movement. All machinery must be secured against accidental operation before divers enter the water. Divers must remain alert for fouling hazards and entrapment points. Salvage operations. Salvage diving may involve clearing wreckage, attaching lifting gear, cutting obstructions, or preparing vessels for raising. Debris may be unstable, and collapse is always a risk. Divers must never work beneath unsupported structures. Air consumption is high during salvage work, requiring careful monitoring of supply and frequent rest periods. Rigging and lifting. Rigging operations underwater require precision and patience. Slings, chains, and cables must be placed securely and checked before lifting begins. Loads must be raised slowly to prevent shifting or failure. The diver must keep clear once lifting commences. Use of explosives in salvage. Explosives may be used to clear wreckage or remove obstructions when other methods are impracticable. Only qualified personnel may handle explosives. Strict safety procedures must be followed. Detonation must never occur while divers are in the water unless absolutely necessary and properly planned. Work inside wrecks. Working inside wrecks is extremely dangerous due to darkness, silt, confined spaces, and entanglement hazards. Air hoses and lifelines must be carefully tended. The diver must maintain constant awareness of exit routes. If visibility is lost or conditions deteriorate, the diver must withdraw immediately. Diving in dry docks and slips. Diving in dry docks and slips involves hazards from falling objects, vessel movement, and restricted maneuvering space. Clear communication with dock personnel is essential. Termination of operations. Upon completion of ship work or salvage operations, all equipment must be carefully inspected for damage. Divers must be examined for fatigue or injury and observed for delayed symptoms of decompression sickness. Final observations. Ship work and salvage diving demand the highest levels of skill, judgment, and discipline. Success depends not on speed but on careful preparation, controlled execution, and respect for the hazards involved. Chapter 19. Diving in rivers, harbors, and restricted waters. Diving operations conducted in rivers, harbors, docks, and other restricted waters present special difficulties and dangers not usually encountered in open water. General conditions. Restricted waters are often characterized by poor visibility, strong or irregular currents, soft bottoms, debris, and heavy vessel traffic. These conditions require additional precautions and constant vigilance. Before diving, the nature of the bottom, current strength, tidal conditions, and traffic must be carefully considered. Visibility. Visibility in rivers and harbors is frequently very poor due to mud, silt, industrial discharge, and organic matter. Divers must be prepared to work entirely by touch. Movements must be slow and deliberate to avoid stirring sediment and further reducing visibility. Currents and tides. Currents in restricted waters may be strong, unpredictable, and influenced by tides, vessel movement, or discharge from structures. Diving should be conducted during slack water whenever possible. If strong currents are present, operations must be postponed. Lines must be carefully managed to prevent fouling or excessive strain. Soft and unstable bottoms. Mud, silt, and soft sand may conceal hazards and make footing uncertain. Divers must test footing carefully and avoid becoming stuck or losing balance. Objects embedded in soft bottoms may shift suddenly when disturbed. Debris and entanglement. Harbors and rivers often contain debris such as cables, chains, nets, and wreckage. Entanglement risk is high. The diver must move cautiously and maintain constant awareness of hose and lifeline positions. If entangled, the diver must stop immediately and signal for assistance. Vessel traffic. Diving operations in areas of vessel traffic are extremely hazardous. Appropriate signals and markers must be displayed to warn approaching vessels. Engines and propellers of nearby vessels must be secured when divers are working nearby. Polluted water. Water in harbors and rivers may be polluted with sewage, chemicals, or industrial waste. Protective undergarments must be worn. Any cuts or abrasions must be covered. After diving, the diver must wash thoroughly and equipment must be carefully cleaned. Diving around piers and docks. Piers and docks present hazards from piles, chains, and overhead obstructions. The diver must be alert to the risk of being pinned or crushed by vessel movement or current. Work in confined spaces. Culverts, pipes, and underwater structures in restricted waters present extreme hazards. Air circulation may be limited, increasing the risk of carbon dioxide accumulation. Entry must be planned carefully, and rescue arrangements must be in place. General precautions. Operations in restricted waters magnify ordinary diving risks. Extra attendance, careful planning, and readiness to abandon operations at the first sign of danger are essential. No operation is sufficiently important to justify unnecessary risk to life. Chapter 20. Concluding observations and general safety principles. The preceding chapters set forth the principles, apparatus, and procedures governing safe and effective diving operations. This concluding chapter emphasizes the fundamental lessons derived from experience and observation. Supremacy of safety. No objective of diving work justifies unnecessary risk to life. Safety must always take precedence over speed, economy, or completion of a task. Disregard of established precautions has repeatedly resulted in serious injury or death. Importance of discipline. Strict discipline is essential in all diving operations. Every member of the diving party must understand and perform his duties precisely. Deviation from prescribed procedures, however minor it may appear, undermines safety. Value of training and experience. Training provides the foundation for safe diving, but experience refines judgment. Divers must continually practice their skills and remain alert to changing conditions. Confidence must be based on competence, not recklessness. Maintenance of equipment. Well-maintained apparatus is essential to safety. Neglect of inspection, testing, or repair endangers both diver and attendants. Defective equipment must never be used. Importance of communication. Clear and reliable communication between diver and surface personnel is critical. Misunderstood or ignored signals are a frequent cause of accidents. Physical and mental fitness. Divers must maintain high standards of physical fitness and mental alertness. Fatigue, illness, alcohol, or emotional disturbance greatly increase risk. Observation after diving. Divers must be observed after diving for delayed symptoms of decompression sickness or other effects. Prompt recognition and treatment prevent serious outcomes. Continuous improvement. Diving practices must evolve based on experience, investigation of accidents, and advances in equipment and knowledge. Accurate records and honest reporting are essential to progress. Final statement. The art of diving demands respect for the forces involved and unwavering attention to detail. Those who adhere strictly to proven principles and procedures will perform their duties safely and effectively. Those who do not place themselves and others in grave danger. Chapter 21. Appendix. Definitions, terms, and practical references. This chapter provides definitions and explanatory notes for technical terms used throughout the manual. Familiarity with these terms is essential for clear communication and proper understanding of diving procedures. Definitions of terms. Absolute pressure. Total pressure measured from a perfect vacuum, equal to atmospheric pressure plus any additional pressure. Atmospheric pressure. Pressure exerted by the atmosphere at sea level, approximately 14.7 pounds per square inch. Bottom time. The elapsed time from the beginning of descent until ascent begins. Caisson disease. Illness caused by improper decompression, resulting from the formation of nitrogen bubbles in the body. Decompression. The controlled reduction of pressure following exposure to increased pressure. Dress. The flexible portion of the diving apparatus enclosing the diver's body. Escape valve. A valve that permits excess air to escape from the helmet to regulate internal pressure and buoyancy. Gauge pressure. Pressure measured above atmospheric pressure. Helmet. The rigid metal enclosure protecting the diver's head and containing the breathing space. Lifeline. The line connecting the diver to the surface, used for signals, guidance, and emergency recovery. Non-return valve. A valve that prevents reverse flow of air from the helmet in the event of air supply failure. Saturation. The condition in which body tissues have absorbed as much gas as they can hold at a given pressure. Stage decompression. A decompression method using a series of stops at predetermined depths. Practical notes. Pressure effects increase rapidly with depth, particularly near the surface. Most serious accidents occur during ascent or within a short time after surfacing. Carbon dioxide accumulation is a more immediate danger than lack of oxygen in surface-applied diving. Adequate ventilation is therefore critical. Cold, fatigue, illness, and hard work increase susceptibility to decompression sickness. General warnings. No diver should ever rely solely on experience or confidence. Every dive must be approached as potentially dangerous. Procedures and precautions outlined in this manual are based on experience gained at the cost of lives and must be respected accordingly. Final note. This manual represents the accumulated knowledge of naval diving practice up to the time of its publication. While equipment and methods may improve, the fundamental physical laws governing diving remain unchanged. Water as the medium of work. Water, when considered as a medium for human activity, differs fundamentally from air. Its density, resistance, and uniform pressure impose conditions that alter movement, perception, and effort. All underwater labor must therefore be understood not as a variation of surface work, but as an entirely distinct mode of operation governed by physical constraint. In water, resistance is constant and omnipresent. Every motion encounters opposition, regardless of speed or direction. Even minimal movement requires deliberate force, and abrupt motion is immediately dampened. This resistance acts uniformly on the body and on all objects, producing an environment in which acceleration is slow and deceleration is immediate. Unlike air, which allows sudden changes of position with little consequence, water discourages haste. A rapid gesture provides no advantage and often results in loss of balance or orientation. For this reason, underwater work naturally favors slow, continuous motion rather than discrete actions. The resistance of water increases with surface area. Broad movements are therefore inefficient, while compact, restrained motions are favored. The diver learns to keep limbs close to the body, to move hands slowly, and to avoid unnecessary extension. Over time, these habits become automatic, not through instruction alone, but through physical necessity. Water also alters the sensation of weight. Objects submerged in water experience buoyant force, reducing their apparent mass. Yet this reduction does not eliminate effort. Instead, it replaces weight with inertia. An object may be easy to lift but difficult to control once in motion. Once displaced, it tends to continue moving until restrained. This characteristic requires the diver to anticipate motion rather than react to it. Tools and materials must be guided carefully, as sudden corrections are resisted by the medium. The result is a working style that prioritizes planning over adjustment. The diver's own body is subject to the same principles. While weighted equipment ensures contact with the bottom, buoyancy remains present. The diver exists in a state of partial suspension, neither fully supported nor entirely free. Balance must be maintained continuously, not by muscular effort alone, but by posture and distribution of weight. Vertical orientation becomes particularly important. Small shifts in position can cause air within the dress to move, altering buoyancy and stability. For this reason, divers are trained to maintain upright posture whenever possible and to avoid inversion except when absolutely necessary. Water transmits pressure uniformly in all directions. This pressure increases steadily with depth, exerting force on every exposed surface. Unlike gravity, which acts primarily downward, hydrostatic pressure is omnidirectional. It presses equally upon the front, back, sides, and internal cavities of the body. This uniform pressure creates a sense of enclosure. The diver is not simply beneath the surface, but within a surrounding mass that exerts constant force. Over time, this sensation becomes familiar, but it never disappears entirely. It contributes to the measured pace of underwater work. The compressive effect of water influences air spaces within the body and equipment. As depth increases, air volume decreases. The diver must accommodate these changes gradually, allowing internal pressure to equalize. Sudden depth changes disrupt this balance and are therefore avoided. Water also affects sound. Vibrations travel efficiently through it. yet the human ability to localize sound direction is diminished. Reflections and distortions make interpretation uncertain. For the diver enclosed in a helmet, sound is further altered by the flow of air and the structure of the apparatus. As a result, auditory cues are unreliable. The diver cannot depend on hearing to assess surroundings or detect movement. This limitation reinforces reliance on touch, visual inspection at close range, and pre-established signals transmitted through physical connection rather than sound. Light behaves differently in water than in air. Even in clear conditions, light intensity decreases rapidly with depth. Particles suspended in the water scatter illumination, reducing contrast and clarity. Edges soften, distances compress, and shadows become ambiguous. Color perception changes as well. Longer wavelengths are absorbed first, causing reds and yellows to fade, while blues and greens persist. This gradual loss of color further flattens visual information, making surfaces appear uniform and reducing visual stimulation. Artificial lighting can restore some visibility, but it introduces its own limitations. Beams illuminate only limited areas, leaving surrounding space indistinct. Reflections from suspended particles may reduce effective range. For this reason, underwater vision remains localized and constrained. The combined effects of resistance, pressure, sound alteration, and limited visibility produce an environment that discourages rapid decision-making. Underwater, reaction time is not the limiting factor. Anticipation is. The diver must consider each movement before executing it. This environment also alters the perception of time. Actions take longer, not only because of physical resistance, but because each step is separated by assessment and stabilization. The sequence of work stretches naturally, with pauses embedded between movements. Waiting becomes an ordinary part of underwater activity. The diver waits for pressure to equalize, for airflow to stabilize, for sediment to settle, or for instructions from the surface. These intervals are not idle, they are integral to safe operation. The bottom itself varies in character. Solid surfaces provide reliable footing, while soft substrates introduce uncertainty. Mud and silt may conceal objects or give way under pressure. Sand shifts with movement. Each type of bottom demands a different approach. On soft bottoms, movement must be especially cautious. A misplaced step may result in sinking or loss of balance. Additionally, disturbed sediment reduces visibility further, sometimes eliminating it entirely. In such conditions, progress relies almost exclusively on touch. Objects encountered underwater often lack clear boundaries. Marine growth, corrosion, and accumulated debris alter familiar shapes. The diver must interpret surfaces tactually, identifying features by texture and resistance rather than appearance. Water also moderates temperature. Heat is conducted away from the body more efficiently than in air, even when the temperature difference is small. Over time, this leads to gradual cooling. The effect is subtle but persistent. Cooling reduces dexterity and increases fatigue. Movements become slower, and grip strength diminishes. Protective clothing mitigates this effect, but does not eliminate it. As a result, underwater work schedules account for temperature as well as depth and duration. Fatigue develops differently underwater. Muscles work continuously against resistance, but without impact. The strain is distributed rather than localized. This produces a steady decline in endurance rather than sudden exhaustion. Because fatigue is less immediately apparent, divers are trained to monitor breathing rate and effort. Increased air consumption often precedes conscious awareness of tiredness. Recognizing this signal allows for timely rest. The medium of water therefore shapes not only physical motion but mental approach. It rewards patience and penalizes haste. Errors are not corrected quickly, and sudden movements rarely improve outcomes. Precision emerges from restraint. This environment imposes a discipline independent of instruction. Regardless of training, the diver must conform to the medium's constraints. Techniques that succeed on land fail underwater. New habits replace old ones through repeated exposure. Over time, the diver internalizes the rhythm imposed by water. Movements slow. Breathing steadies. Attention narrows to immediate surroundings. The external world recedes, replaced by a reduced field defined by resistance, pressure, and flow. In this way, water becomes not merely the setting for underwater work, but an active participant. It governs pace, limits choice, and enforces order. All diving practice begins with recognition of this fact. Understanding water as the medium of work is therefore foundational. Before tools, before procedures, before equipment, the diver must adapt to the conditions imposed by the surrounding mass. Only then can work proceed safely and effectively. Air as continuity and supply. Air, within the context of underwater work, functions not as an ambient condition but as a controlled resource. Unlike water, which surrounds the diver continuously, air is introduced deliberately and must be maintained without interruption. Its presence enables life beneath the surface, yet its absence or instability presents immediate danger. In surface environments, air is passive and abundant. It requires no management and imposes no limitation. Underwater, air becomes active, constrained by volume, pressure, and flow. Every breath taken by the diver depends upon machinery, hoses, and the attention of personnel above. The supply of air must be continuous. Interruption, even briefly, alters internal pressure and compromises breathing. For this reason, air systems are designed not for efficiency alone, but for reliability. Redundancy, steady operation, and consistent oversight are prioritized over speed or output. Air reaches the diver through a flexible conduit extending from the surface. This conduit must remain unobstructed, intact, and properly connected at all times. Its path is monitored constantly to prevent kinks, compression, or entanglement. The physical continuity of the hose mirrors the physiological continuity of respiration. Within the diving apparatus, air enters under pressure sufficient to counteract the surrounding water. This pressure must exceed ambient water pressure slightly, allowing the diver to breathe normally while preventing water ingress. Excess pressure, however, must be released to avoid excessive buoyancy. This balance is maintained through regulating valves. These devices allow surplus air to escape gradually, preserving internal equilibrium. The operation of such valves requires neither constant adjustment nor forceful action, but steady awareness. Air within the helmet circulates continuously. Fresh air enters, while exhaled air and carbon dioxide are displaced and vented. This flow serves multiple functions. It sustains respiration, removes waste gases, and stabilizes pressure. The diver does not breathe from a static volume, but from a moving stream. The density of air increases with depth. As pressure rises, the same volume contains more mass. This change affects breathing effort. Each inhalation requires slightly more work, and exhalation encounters increased resistance. These effects accumulate gradually rather than suddenly. The diver adapts by slowing breathing and avoiding unnecessary exertion. Controlled movement conserves air and reduces physiological strain. Training emphasizes moderation rather than strength, as endurance under pressure depends on efficient use of the air supply. Air also serves as a means of communication. Variations in flow may be perceived by the diver as changes in sound or sensation. Sudden drops in pressure or interruptions are immediately noticeable, prompting signaling and corrective action. The surface crew monitors air delivery continuously. Gauges indicate pressure and flow, allowing attendants to adjust output in response to depth changes or increased activity. This oversight is constant and uninterrupted, as lapses may have immediate consequences. Hand-operated pumps require sustained physical effort. Operators must maintain rhythm and pressure without fluctuation. Fatigue among pump operators is therefore a consideration in dive planning. Relief personnel are assigned to ensure continuity. Mechanically driven compressors provide greater capacity and consistency, yet they introduce additional considerations. Cooling, lubrication, and filtration must be managed to ensure air quality. Heated or contaminated air poses serious risk to the diver. Air temperature affects comfort and safety. Compressed air may warm during delivery, particularly at greater depths or under high flow. Excessively warm air increases discomfort and accelerates fatigue. Cooling systems or moderated flow may be employed to mitigate this effect. Purity of air is essential. Oil vapors, carbon monoxide, or excessive carbon dioxide render air unfit for breathing. For this reason, intake sources are selected carefully, and equipment is maintained to prevent contamination. The diver cannot directly observe the condition of the air supply. Unlike water, which can be seen and felt, air quality is inferred through sensation. Difficulty breathing, dizziness, or unusual odors signal potential problems. These symptoms require immediate response. Air supply also influences buoyancy. As air accumulates within the dress, buoyant force increases. Controlled release maintains balance. Improper regulation may result in uncontrolled ascent, particularly during upward movement. During descent, increasing pressure compresses internal air spaces. The diver must allow additional air to enter to maintain comfort and mobility. This process is gradual and coordinated with depth changes. Sudden descent without adjustment results in suit compression. During ascent, the opposite occurs. Air expands as pressure decreases. Excess must be vented to prevent overinflation. The diver therefore manages air actively throughout vertical movement, maintaining equilibrium rather than allowing automatic response. Air serves as a buffer between the diver and the surrounding pressure. It creates a controlled internal environment within the helmet and dress. This environment isolates the diver partially from external forces while remaining dependent on them. The diver's awareness of air is constant but subdued. Breathing becomes regular and deliberate. The sound of airflow provides a steady background, neither alarming nor distracting. Over time, it blends into the general sensory field. Despite its importance, air remains intangible. The diver cannot grasp it or store it independently. Its presence depends entirely on external systems functioning as intended. This dependence reinforces adherence to procedure and discourages improvisation. The continuity of air supply parallels the continuity of work. Tasks proceed only as long as air flows steadily. Any interruption requires immediate cessation of activity and reassessment. Progress is therefore conditional, not absolute. Air consumption increases with exertion. Tasks involving lifting, cutting, or resistance demand higher flow. The surface crew adjusts delivery accordingly. This dynamic relationship between effort and supply necessitates clear communication and anticipation. Emergency procedures prioritize restoration of air. Secondary considerations, such as decompression, may be deferred temporarily to preserve life. This hierarchy underscores the primacy of respiration over all other factors. In some operations, reserve air supplies are maintained. Accumulators store compressed air to provide continuity during transitions or equipment failure. These reserves are not intended for routine use, but for contingency. The existence of reserves allows for controlled response rather than panic. Their presence contributes to operational calm, even if they are never used. Planning for failure supports successful execution. Air supply systems must be tested regularly. Valves, hoses, and fittings are inspected to ensure integrity. Minor defects, acceptable on the surface, become critical under pressure. The diver trusts the air supply without actively questioning it. This trust is built through inspection, training, and experience. Without such trust, calm operation would be impossible. The management of air therefore represents both a technical and psychological foundation of diving. It sustains life, governs movement, and shapes behavior. All other considerations are secondary to its continuity. In the underwater environment, air is not merely breathed, it is managed, regulated, and preserved. Its flow establishes the conditions under which work may occur. Understanding air as a continuous supply rather than a static presence is essential. Through steady delivery and disciplined use, air transforms the underwater environment from an inhospitable space into a temporary workplace. Its uninterrupted flow makes extended submersion possible. Thus, air functions as the connecting medium between surface and depth. It links machinery, attendants, and diver into a single system. When maintained properly, it fades into the background, allowing work to proceed without interruption. Time and progress under pressure. Time, within the environment of underwater work, is experienced differently than at the surface. This difference does not arise from abstraction or perception alone, but from the physical and procedural constraints imposed by pressure, resistance, and controlled supply. Underwater, time is shaped by necessity rather than intention. On land, many actions are limited primarily by decision and effort. Underwater, actions are limited by sequence. Each step depends upon the completion of the previous one, and progress cannot be accelerated without introducing risk. Time therefore becomes structured, divided into intervals defined by preparation, execution, and stabilization. Descent initiates this altered relationship with time. The diver does not move continuously downward at a fixed rate, but pauses repeatedly to allow pressure to equalize and equipment to respond. These pauses are brief, but they establish a pattern that persists throughout the dive. As depth increases, adjustments become more deliberate. Airflow is regulated, internal pressure is balanced, and movement is slowed. The diver becomes accustomed to waiting, not as an interruption, but as a necessary phase of motion. Work on the bottom proceeds in measured segments. Tasks are broken down into smaller units than would be required on land. Each unit is approached individually, completed fully, and then followed by reassessment before proceeding. This segmentation extends the duration of even simple tasks. What might require a few moments at the surface may require several minutes below. This is not inefficiency, but adaptation to conditions that resist rapid change. The medium itself enforces pacing. Resistance slows motion. Reduced visibility limits reach. Pressure restricts abrupt movement. Together, these factors prevent the compression of tasks into shorter periods. Waiting becomes integral to progress. The diver waits for air pressure to stabilize, for sediment to settle, for signals from the surface, or for physical equilibrium to be restored after movement. These intervals accumulate, elongating the overall duration of work. Unlike waiting on land, underwater waiting is active rather than idle. The diver maintains position, monitors balance, and remains attentive to signals and surroundings. Stillness is deliberate and controlled, not passive. Time underwater is also governed by physiological considerations. Air consumption, body temperature, and fatigue impose limits. These limits are not fixed but vary with exertion and depth. As a result, time must be managed conservatively. Dive planning reflects this constraint. Estimated working time includes not only the task itself, but descent, ascent, and required pauses. The effective working window is therefore narrower than total submersion time. Decompression further shapes time. After leaving the bottom, ascent is staged rather than continuous. The diver pauses at predetermined depths, allowing absorbed gases to be released safely. These pauses may exceed the duration of the work performed. During decompression stops, movement is minimal. The diver maintains position, regulates air, and waits. The passage of time during these intervals is unhurried and uniform. No action can hasten completion. These enforced pauses emphasize that time under pressure is not negotiable. Attempting to shorten required intervals introduces disproportionate risk. The system tolerates patience but not haste. The surface crew also operates under this temporal framework. Pump operators maintain rhythm. Attendants monitor gauges. Supervisors track elapsed time and plan stages. The entire operation unfolds according to a shared schedule. Timekeeping becomes precise. Depth and duration are recorded accurately. These records serve not only administrative purposes but medical ones, informing post-dive observation and future planning. The diver's awareness of time is indirect. Without clocks or external cues, duration is inferred from task progression, breathing rhythm, and signal exchanges. Time is felt as sequence rather than quantity. This qualitative experience of time contributes to calmness. Without frequent reference to minutes or seconds, attention remains focused on immediate actions. The diver works within the present interval rather than anticipating completion. Extended exposure to this environment reinforces patience. The diver learns that progress cannot be forced. Attempts to accelerate motion produce inefficiency or instability, requiring correction and further delay. Fatigue alters temporal perception. As exertion accumulates, movements slow further and pauses lengthen. The diver must recognize this change and respond by resting or signaling for relief. Cold also affects time. Reduced dexterity and responsiveness increase task duration. Operations in cold water account for this by limiting dive length and allowing extended recovery. Time management underwater therefore prioritizes safety over productivity. The sequence of events is designed to protect the diver rather than maximize output. Completion of the task is secondary to controlled execution. This approach contrasts with many surface operations, where efficiency and speed are emphasized. Underwater, efficiency is achieved through steadiness rather than acceleration. The divergence between intention and capability becomes apparent. While the diver may wish to complete a task quickly, the environment dictates otherwise. Acceptance of this constraint is essential. Over time, divers internalize this temporal structure. Expectations adjust. The absence of urgency becomes normal. Work proceeds at a pace consistent with environmental conditions. This adjustment reduces stress. When time is no longer perceived as scarce, attention shifts from completion to execution. Errors decrease as focus narrows to the immediate task. The staged nature of diving operations reinforces predictability. Descent follows known patterns. Work proceeds within defined limits. Ascent adheres to established schedules. This predictability supports calm operation. Unexpected events, when they occur, are managed within this framework. Even emergencies follow procedures that emphasize controlled response rather than rapid reaction. The diver's relationship with time is therefore procedural rather than subjective. Time is measured, recorded, and respected. It is not manipulated. In underwater work, time is not an abstract continuum but a sequence of enforced intervals. Each interval serves a purpose and cannot be removed without consequence. This structure aligns with the broader principles of diving practice. Physical laws dictate conditions. Procedures respond to those laws. Time binds them together. As a result, underwater operations unfold with a characteristic rhythm. Movement, pause, adjustment, and waiting repeat in sequence. The repetition is functional rather than monotonous. This rhythm contributes to the quiet nature of diving work. Without rapid transitions or abrupt changes, the environment remains stable. Stability supports endurance. Upon surfacing, the diver transitions back to an environment where time is less constrained. This transition may feel abrupt. The surface world allows immediacy that was unavailable below. Post-dive observation extends the temporal scope of the operation. Even after leaving the water, time remains a factor in monitoring recovery and identifying delayed effects. Thus, the influence of time under pressure extends beyond submersion. It shapes preparation, execution, and recovery alike. Understanding time as a governing element of underwater work is therefore essential. It defines what may be done, how it is done, and how long it must take. In the submerged environment, time is not a resource to be spent, but a condition to be observed. Respect for its constraints ensures safety and continuity. Through adherence to measured progression and enforced pauses, underwater work becomes sustainable. The diver moves within time rather than against it. And so, beneath the surface, progress is marked not by speed, but by sequence, patience, and controlled duration, each moment serving its place within the greater interval of the dive. Attention, habit, and the working mind. The mental state required for underwater work differs from that associated with surface labor. Beneath the surface, cognition is shaped by constraint rather than choice. Attention narrows, habits dominate, and conscious deliberation yields to practiced sequence. The underwater environment limits sensory input. Vision is restricted, sound is distorted, and touch becomes the primary source of information. This reduction simplifies perception while increasing reliance on familiarity. The diver does not interpret a wide field of stimuli, but focuses on immediate contact. As a result, attention becomes localized. The diver concentrates on the position of the body, the feel of the bottom, the movement of tools, and the tension of the lifeline. Peripheral concerns diminish. This focus is not forced, but emerges naturally from the conditions of work. Habit plays a central role. Repeated actions become automatic through training and repetition. Movements are executed without conscious analysis, reducing cognitive load. This automation allows the diver to respond calmly to routine variations without hesitation. Procedures are designed to support habit formation. Steps are ordered consistently. Signals follow fixed patterns. Equipment is arranged predictably. Familiarity reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is a primary source of stress. The working mind underwater favors method over improvisation. Novel solutions are discouraged unless required. Established techniques are applied repeatedly, even when alternatives might appear more efficient on land. This preference reflects the cost of error underwater. Mistakes are difficult to correct quickly. Therefore, reliable methods are valued more highly than creative ones. The diver applies known solutions rather than seeking optimal ones. Decision-making becomes conservative. The diver evaluates options slowly, favoring actions that maintain stability and continuity. When uncertain, the diver pauses rather than proceeds. Waiting is often safer than action. This approach contrasts with many surface environments, where decisiveness is rewarded. Underwater, restraint is often the correct response. The working mind adapts accordingly. Mental calmness supports physiological stability. Anxiety accelerates breathing and increases air consumption. Calm attention preserves both air and energy. Training emphasizes familiarity to reduce emotional response. Over time, the diver's mental state aligns with the environment. Thoughts become sequential rather than associated. Attention follows the order of tasks rather than drifting. Distraction diminishes. This mental narrowing is not impairment, but adaptation. The diver processes only what is necessary. Excess information is filtered out by circumstance rather than effort. The absence of external noise and rapid change contributes to this state. Without frequent interruptions, attention remains sustained. The diver engages fully with each action before moving on. Fatigue influences cognition subtly. As physical effort accumulates, mental processing slows. The diver compensates by relying more heavily on habit and less on active reasoning. This shift is anticipated in training. Supervision accounts for these effects. Dive duration and task complexity are limited to maintain cognitive clarity. Relief divers are prepared to replace working divers before fatigue compromises judgment. Communication reinforces structure. Signals are brief and unambiguous. Instructions are limited to essential information. This economy of communication reduces cognitive burden. The diver's awareness of risk is continuous but subdued. Hazards are known and accounted for in procedure. Vigilance is maintained without alarm. This balance supports sustained attention. Unexpected events are addressed through established responses. Emergency drills ensure that even rare occurrences are met with practiced action. This preparation reduces panic and preserves order. The working mind underwater does not seek stimulation. Novelty offers no advantage. Repetition reinforces stability. Familiar tasks are preferred, even if monotonous. This preference aligns with the environment's resistance to change. The medium discourages experimentation. Predictable action integrates smoothly with surrounding conditions. Over extended periods, this mental posture becomes habitual. Divers often report a sense of quiet focus during operations. The absence of distraction produces a state of sustained attention without tension. This state does not resemble urgency or excitement. It is closer to methodical engagement. Time passes without notice, segmented by task completion rather than conscious tracking. The return to the surface often disrupts this equilibrium. Increased sensory input and freedom of movement reintroduce variability. The diver transitions gradually back to surface cognition. Post-dive procedures allow this adjustment. Rest, observation, and limited activity ease the shift. The working mind relinquishes its constrained focus. The cultivation of this mental state is intentional. Training reinforces calm response, disciplined movement, and reliance on procedure. These traits support safe operation. The diver's confidence arises not from boldness, but from familiarity. Knowing what to do reduces the need for active deliberation. This confidence is quiet rather than assertive. Mistakes are minimized through routine. When deviation occurs, it is recognized quickly because it contrasts with established pattern. Correction follows without urgency. The working mind therefore functions as part of a system. Individual cognition supports collective operation. The diver's actions align with surface support, equipment behavior, and environmental constraint. This integration reduces individual burden. Responsibility is distributed across procedure, equipment, and supervision. The diver operates within a framework rather than independently. In this framework, attention is steady and bounded. The diver neither rushes nor delays unnecessarily. Each action occupies its place within the sequence. Mental endurance parallels physical endurance. Sustained focus requires energy. Limiting cognitive demand preserves capacity over time. Habit conserves mental resources. The underwater environment thus shapes cognition indirectly. By limiting options and imposing sequence, it simplifies decision-making. Complexity is managed through structure rather than flexibility. Understanding this mental adaptation is essential for safe diving practice. Equipment alone cannot ensure safety. The working mind must align with conditions. Through training and experience, divers develop this alignment. Attention narrows, habits strengthen, and calm persistence replaces urgency. In this state, work proceeds steadily. Tasks are completed without haste. The environment remains stable. The diver remains composed. And so, beneath the surface, the working mind operates quietly within constraint, guided by habit, sustained by attention, and supported by the steady rhythm of procedure and supply. Equipment as extension of the body. Underwater work is made possible not by strength alone, but by the integration of the human body with mechanical apparatus. In the submerged environment, equipment does not merely assist the diver, it becomes an extension of bodily function. Movement, balance, perception, and respiration are all mediated through constructed systems. On land, tools are external. They are grasped, used, and set aside. Underwater, equipment is worn, inhabited, and depended upon continuously. The diver does not step away from the apparatus. It surrounds the body and operates in constant relation to it. The diving dress encloses the diver completely. It replaces the natural boundary between body and environment. Through it, water is excluded and pressure is managed. The diver experiences the environment not directly, but through layers of material designed to regulate contact. This enclosure alters bodily awareness. The diver becomes conscious of bulk, resistance, and limited articulation. Movements that would be trivial on land require adaptation. The body learns new dimensions and new limits imposed by the equipment. Weighted boots and additional masses alter posture and gait. Balance shifts downward. Stability increases, but agility decreases. The diver adjusts by shortening steps and maintaining deliberate contact with the bottom. These weights do not merely counteract buoyancy, they define orientation. Upright posture is encouraged by their distribution. Deviations from this posture are resisted by the combined effects of weight and water. The helmet functions as both protection and interface. It encloses the head, creating a controlled internal atmosphere. Within it, air flows continuously, sound is moderated, and vision is framed by fixed windows. The diver's face does not encounter water directly. Instead, perception occurs through glass, metal, and air. This mediation flattens sensation, removing extremes and producing a consistent sensory field. Breathing, normally automatic and unremarkable, becomes perceptible. The sound of inhalation and exhalation is amplified by the helmet's interior. The diver hears respiration as part of the working environment. This auditory feedback influences pacing. Rapid breathing is immediately apparent, prompting reduction in exertion. Calm breathing reinforces steadiness. The equipment thus supports self-regulation. Valves provide fine control over airflow and pressure. Their operation is tactile rather than visual. The diver adjusts them by feel, responding to changes in buoyancy and comfort. These controls become familiar through repetition. Their location and resistance are learned implicitly. The diver reaches for them without conscious search, integrating mechanical adjustment into bodily habit. The air hose serves as both lifeline and constraint. It delivers air while limiting range. Its presence is continuous, felt through tension and drag. The diver learns to move within its arc, avoiding entanglement. Rather than resisting this limitation, the diver incorporates it into movement planning. Paths are chosen that keep the hose clear. Sudden turns are avoided. Awareness of the hose becomes background knowledge. The lifeline parallels the air hose in function. It transmits signals, provides guidance, and offers means of recovery. Like the hose, it imposes spatial boundaries. Together, these lines define the diver's operational space. Movement is not free but bounded. These bounds are accepted as protective rather than restrictive. Tools used underwater are selected to complement the equipment. Handles are enlarged for gloved hands. Weight is added to reduce drift. Sharp edges are minimized to prevent damage to the dress. Tool use requires adaptation. Grip strength is altered by gloves. Precision is reduced. Tasks are simplified accordingly. The diver compensates through slower motion and increased attention. The equipment's mass contributes to inertia. Starting and stopping movement require effort. Once in motion, the combined system of body and apparatus resists sudden change. This inertia encourages smooth transitions. Abrupt actions are inefficient. Gradual shifts conserve energy and maintain balance. The diver's center of gravity is altered by equipment distribution. Awareness of this change becomes intuitive over time. Balance is maintained through posture rather than muscular correction. Equipment also affects communication. The helmet muffles speech, requiring amplification or signaling. Facial expression is invisible. Communication relies on established systems rather than spontaneous cues. This limitation simplifies interaction. Signals are predefined. Interpretation is standardized. Emotional nuance is minimized. Information exchange becomes purely functional. Maintenance of equipment is therefore inseparable from diving practice. Defects compromise not only function but bodily integration. A poorly fitted component disrupts movement and concentration. Regular inspection ensures that equipment behaves predictably. Predictability supports habit. Habit supports calm operation. The diver trusts the equipment because it has been tested, maintained, and used repeatedly. This trust reduces cognitive load. Attention remains focused on task rather than apparatus. When equipment functions correctly, it recedes from conscious awareness. The diver does not think about breathing, balance, or enclosure. These processes occur reliably in the background. This disappearance of equipment from attention marks successful integration. The apparatus no longer feels external, but becomes part of the working body. When equipment malfunctions, awareness returns abruptly. Discomfort, instability, or altered sensation draw immediate attention. Such changes prompt signaling and corrective action. Training emphasizes early recognition of these deviations. Small changes are addressed before they escalate. The diver remains attentive without becoming anxious. Equipment extends the diver's capabilities while imposing limits. These limits are not obstacles but boundaries within which safe operation occurs. Understanding these boundaries is essential. Attempting to exceed them introduces risk. Respecting them supports continuity. Over time, the diver's identity includes the apparatus. Movements, habits, and expectations are shaped by its presence. Diving becomes a distinct mode of being, rather than a variation of surface activity. This integration is temporary but complete. During the dive, the diver exists as a combined system of human and machine. Upon removal of the apparatus, this integration dissolves. The body returns to its unencumbered state. Sensory input increases. Movement becomes freer. The contrast highlights the extent of adaptation required underwater. The equipment mediates every interaction with the environment. Thus, equipment is not merely supportive but constitutive of underwater work. It defines what can be perceived, how movement occurs, and how life is sustained. Recognizing equipment as extension rather than accessory aligns expectations with reality. The diver works through the apparatus, not despite it. Through careful design, maintenance, and habitual use, the apparatus becomes transparent. Its presence enables work beneath the surface without demanding attention. In this way, equipment allows the diver to operate within the underwater environment with steadiness and control, forming a temporary but complete union between body and machine. Signals, lines, and controlled communication. Communication underwater does not rely on speech or gesture in the ordinary sense. The submerged environment limits sound transmission, obscures vision, and constrains movement. As a result, communication is reduced to essential signals conveyed through physical means. This reduction simplifies exchange while increasing reliability. The primary medium of communication between diver and surface is the lifeline. This line serves multiple functions simultaneously. It guides movement, transmits signals, and provides a physical connection between the diver and attendants above. Its role is continuous rather than occasional. Signals transmitted along the lifeline are deliberate and standardized. Each signal consists of a specific number of pulls, separated by pauses. The meaning of each signal is fixed and known in advance. This standardization eliminates ambiguity. Unlike spoken language, which allows variation and nuance, line signals are intentionally limited. They convey only essential information: direction, status, and need. The absence of complexity reduces the likelihood of misinterpretation. Each signal is acknowledged by repetition. This confirmation closes the communication loop, ensuring that instructions are received and understood. Failure to acknowledge a signal prompts immediate response. The tempo of signaling is slow. Rapid or irregular pulls are reserved exclusively for distress. All other communication proceeds at a measured pace, reinforcing calmness and discouraging haste. The diver becomes accustomed to interpreting signals through tactile sensation rather than conscious counting. Over time, recognition becomes automatic. The feel of the line conveys meaning without active thought. This tactile communication functions reliably even when visibility is absent. In darkness or turbidity, the line remains perceptible. Its tension, slack, and movement provide constant information about orientation and connection. The air hose parallels the lifeline in presence and influence. While it does not transmit signals intentionally, its behavior communicates indirectly. Changes in tension or vibration alert the diver to surface activity or movement. Together, hose and lifeline define spatial awareness. The diver senses position relative to the surface through their combined orientation. This awareness persists even when visual cues are unavailable. Communication is therefore continuous rather than episodic. Even in the absence of active signaling, the diver remains informed by the physical state of the lines. Subtle changes convey information without interruption. Surface attendants maintain equal attention to the lines. They monitor tension, movement, and alignment. Any irregularity prompts investigation. This vigilance ensures that communication remains effective. Telephone systems, when present, supplement but do not replace line signals. Speech may clarify instructions, but the lifeline remains authoritative. If verbal communication fails, operations continue using signals alone. This redundancy reflects the primacy of reliability over convenience. Physical signals are less susceptible to interference and failure. Their simplicity supports consistent operation. Communication protocols discourage improvisation. Unauthorized signals are prohibited. Variation introduces uncertainty. Predictability preserves safety. The diver's mental state benefits from this structured communication. Knowing that signals are limited and meaningful reduces cognitive load. Attention remains focused on task rather than interpretation. Lines also serve as guides. The diver may follow the lifeline to return to the descent point. In confined or complex environments, this guidance is essential. The tactile feedback provided by the line reinforces orientation. Even when disoriented visually, the diver can determine direction through line tension and angle. Distance lines may be used to measure horizontal displacement. These lines extend from a fixed point and allow the diver to gauge progress without visual reference. Movement proceeds incrementally along the line. Such systems replace visual mapping with physical reference. Space is understood through length and tension rather than sight. This approach aligns with the sensory limitations of the environment. Communication during ascent and descent follows strict procedure. Signals control rate of movement. The diver does not ascend or descend independently but responds to surface direction. This control prevents rapid pressure change and maintains coordination. The surface crew manages movement based on gauges and timing, while the diver focuses on balance and air regulation. During decompression stops, communication is minimal. The diver remains stationary. Signals confirm status at intervals. Silence predominates. This quiet period emphasizes the non-verbal nature of underwater communication. Presence is maintained without constant exchange. Emergency signaling is distinct. Rapid, repeated pulls indicate distress. These signals override all others and demand immediate response. Their uniqueness ensures recognition. Training emphasizes instant recognition of distress signals. No interpretation is required. The response is automatic. The clarity of emergency communication depends on the discipline of routine signaling. When normal signals are orderly, deviations stand out clearly. Communication also serves psychological function. The physical connection reassures the diver of support. Knowing that attendants monitor the line continuously reinforces calmness. Isolation underwater is mitigated by this connection. Though speech is limited, presence is constant. The diver is not alone, but linked. Surface personnel likewise rely on communication to assess diver condition. Changes in signaling pattern, timing, or tension may indicate fatigue or difficulty. This mutual awareness supports cooperative operation. Neither diver nor attendants act independently. Each responds to the other through the shared medium of the line. Lines must be managed carefully to avoid fouling. Entanglement disrupts communication and movement. Attendants tend lines continuously to keep them clear. The diver also avoids unnecessary crossing or looping of lines. Movement paths are planned to minimize interference. Awareness of line position is continuous. When multiple lines are present, differentiation is maintained through placement and tension. Confusion is avoided through disciplined arrangement. Communication underwater is therefore deliberate, limited, and physical. It prioritizes certainty over expressiveness. This approach aligns with the environment's constraints. By reducing communication to essential signals, underwater operations achieve reliability. Excess information is excluded. Only what must be conveyed is transmitted. This minimalism supports calm execution. The diver receives clear instruction without distraction. The surface crew receives unambiguous status information. Through repeated use, this system becomes habitual. Signals are exchanged without conscious effort. The physical connection replaces verbal dialogue. In this way, communication becomes part of the equipment rather than a separate function. It is woven into the structure of the operation. Understanding communication as controlled exchange rather than conversation is essential. Underwater, clarity is achieved through restraint. The lifeline thus serves as both guide and language. Its steady presence supports orientation, coordination, and safety. Through disciplined use of signals and careful management of lines, underwater work proceeds smoothly. The system functions quietly, without unnecessary exchange. And so, beneath the surface, communication is maintained not through sound or sight, but through touch, tension, and deliberate signal. Simple, reliable, and continuous. Recovery, rest, and post-dive stillness. The conclusion of underwater work does not occur at the moment the diver leaves the water. Recovery begins gradually and continues after the apparatus is removed. This period is governed by the same principles that define the dive itself: controlled transition, observation, and restraint. As ascent concludes, pressure decreases and the diver returns to atmospheric conditions. This change is not instantaneous in effect, even when ascent has been properly staged. The body requires time to adjust to altered pressure and gas balance. Upon reaching the surface, the diver remains enclosed within the helmet briefly. Airflow continues. Breathing steadies. Movement is minimal. This pause allows physiological processes to continue adjusting without interruption. Removal of the helmet marks a transition point. Sensory input increases suddenly. Sound becomes distinct. Vision broadens. Temperature differences become apparent. The diver experiences a return to surface conditions that contrasts sharply with the subdued environment below. Despite this return, activity remains limited. The diver does not immediately resume ordinary motion. Instead, rest is emphasized. Sitting or reclining allows circulation to normalize and breathing to settle fully. Observation follows. Attendants monitor the diver's condition, noting breathing rate, posture, and responsiveness. This monitoring is routine rather than reactive, intended to detect subtle changes rather than obvious distress. The diver's own awareness may lag behind physiological change. Sensations such as warmth, fatigue, or mild discomfort may appear gradually. These are reported without interpretation, allowing supervisors to assess significance. Rest continues for a defined period. Exertion is avoided. The diver does not engage in lifting, climbing, or hurried movement. This restraint reduces strain and supports gas elimination. Hydration may be provided, but stimulants are avoided. The objective is stabilization rather than stimulation. Calmness remains the guiding principle. The equipment itself enters a recovery phase. Hoses are disconnected. Valves are closed. The apparatus is removed systematically, avoiding sudden release or careless handling. This orderliness mirrors the methodical nature of the dive. As the diver is freed from the apparatus, the body reacclimates to unrestricted movement. This reacclimation is gradual. Muscles accustomed to resistance feel lighter. Balance adjusts. The sense of weightlessness present underwater gives way to full gravity. This shift may feel abrupt. The diver remains seated or supported until equilibrium is fully restored. Post-dive stillness serves both physical and mental recovery. The working mind releases its constrained focus. Attention broadens. Thought patterns shift back toward surface norms. This transition is not hurried. The diver is allowed to remain quiet, minimizing sensory overload. Conversation is limited. The environment remains calm. Delayed effects may appear during this period. Sensations of joint stiffness, mild pain, or fatigue are noted. These observations are documented without judgment. The absence of immediate symptoms does not conclude observation. The diver remains under watch for several hours. Delayed reactions are possible even after uneventful dives. This extended observation reflects understanding of physiological processes rather than suspicion of error. The body continues adjusting after pressure exposure ends. Sleep following diving is often deeper than usual. Rest supports recovery. Dreams may be absent or unremarkable. The mind disengages readily. Between dives, sufficient interval is maintained. Residual effects from previous exposure influence readiness for subsequent work. Time on the surface allows partial normalization. Dive planning incorporates these intervals. Operations are scheduled to avoid cumulative strain. Recovery is treated as an integral component of the work cycle. Equipment maintenance coincides with diver rest. Apparatus is cleaned, inspected, and prepared for future use. This parallel recovery reinforces readiness. Records are completed during this period. Depth, duration, and observations are logged. These records serve both administrative and safety purposes. The act of recording reinforces closure. The dive becomes a completed sequence rather than an ongoing state. Documentation supports mental transition. The environment during recovery remains subdued. Loud activity, sudden movement, or unnecessary exertion are discouraged. Calmness persists as a safety measure. The diver's role during recovery is passive rather than active. Responsibility shifts temporarily to attendants and supervisors. This shift allows full rest. Recovery also includes psychological detachment from task. The diver does not immediately review performance or anticipate future work. Reflection occurs later. This separation prevents mental fatigue. It allows the working mind to release procedural focus and return to ordinary cognition. Over time, repeated cycles of dive and recovery establish rhythm. Work and rest alternate predictably. The diver becomes accustomed to this pattern. This rhythm supports longevity. Sustained diving practice depends on respecting recovery as much as execution. Ignoring recovery introduces risk. Fatigue accumulates silently. Judgment degrades gradually. Errors become more likely. For this reason, rest is enforced rather than optional. The quiet following a dive contrasts with the controlled engagement below. Both states are deliberate. Neither is incidental. In recovery, stillness replaces motion. Attention broadens slowly. The diver re-enters surface life without abrupt transition. The completion of a dive is therefore not an endpoint but a phase. The operation concludes only after recovery has stabilized. This understanding aligns with the broader philosophy of diving practice. Each phase supports the next. No element stands alone. Through deliberate recovery, the diver preserves capacity for future work. The body and mind return to baseline gradually. And so, after submersion, stillness follows effort. Rest follows restraint. The cycle closes quietly, preparing for whatever work may come next. Stillness and continuity. As the sequence of work, communication, and recovery concludes, activity gives way to stillness. This stillness is not absence, but balance. It marks the point at which motion has served its purpose and no further action is required. The environment remains unchanged. Water continues to press uniformly. Air continues to move through controlled channels. The systems that supported work remain in place, though no longer engaged. Nothing accelerates. Nothing resolves. The state that follows is one of continuation rather than completion. The diver is no longer descending or ascending. Depth no longer changes. Pressure is constant. The body remains at rest, neither adjusting nor exerting. Breathing settles into an even rhythm. Each breath follows the last without effort. Air moves in and out without resistance or urgency. The surrounding space is quiet. Sound, if present, is uniform and unobtrusive. There are no sudden changes, no signals to interpret, no instructions to follow. The body occupies space without intention. Weight is supported. Muscles remain relaxed. Balance requires no correction. Attention drifts from task to presence. There is nothing to monitor and nothing to anticipate. Awareness broadens without focus. Time continues, but without segmentation. There are no intervals to count, no stages to observe. Duration exists without measurement. The sense of enclosure softens. Boundaries remain, but they no longer demand attention. Equipment, environment, and body coexist without interaction. The flow of air persists quietly, though it no longer signifies effort or dependence. It is simply present, steady, and neutral. Water remains motionless except where displaced by small, incidental movement. There is no disturbance, no current, no drip. Light, if present, is diffuse. It does not highlight or direct. It illuminates without emphasis. The distinction between surface and depth becomes irrelevant. Orientation loses importance. There is no direction to move toward. The systems that governed earlier phases continue without demand. Valves remain set. Lines remain slack. No adjustment is required. This state contains no instruction and no response. It does not invite action. It permits rest. Breathing becomes less audible. Awareness of respiration fades. The body continues automatically. Thought, if present, is unstructured. There is no sequence to follow and no problem to solve. Memory of prior activity recedes. The detailed processes of descent, work, and ascent lose definition. They are no longer foreground. The mind no longer distinguishes between waiting and doing. Both dissolve into the same state of presence. Stillness extends without boundary. It does not mark an ending. It does not announce continuation. It simply remains. Nothing presses forward. Nothing pulls away. The environment offers no signal. The body requires no instruction. This condition is stable. It does not improve or deteriorate. It persists as long as it is allowed. If time passes, it does so without effect. The state remains unchanged by duration. The absence of movement does not imply emptiness. Systems continue functioning quietly. Balance is maintained. There is no need to return or proceed. The moment holds. Attention narrows again, not toward task, but toward absence of demand. The lack of requirement becomes perceptible. Breathing remains the only rhythm, though it no longer draws focus. It supports without asking. The surrounding medium exerts no pressure to act. It supports rest as it once resisted motion. The cycle of work and recovery dissolves into a neutral interval. Neither phase dominates. In this interval, nothing is expected. The environment remains consistent. Conditions do not change. No adaptation is required. The body rests within this consistency. Muscles remain loose. Posture is unforced. The mind accepts the absence of direction. There is no need to orient or decide. If awareness drifts, it drifts without consequence. The state may persist indefinitely. It does not progress toward resolution. There is no marker to indicate completion. Only continuity remains. Breathing continues. Air continues. Water remains. Stillness holds.